Hello. You guys are going to have to mind the posture here this morning, at least for a little bit, because I can't get my upper back to chill out. So I'm leaned up against a heating pad at the moment. It's one of these heating pads that runs for a little while and then automatically shuts off. So as soon as it starts cooling down, we'll see how it's feeling. I might sit back up again. But hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully I can read the stuff on the screen okay, because now that I'm back here, I'm probably like, I don't know, 4.5 feet away from the screen. And I've got pretty good eyes, but it's getting pretty small out there. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way in. I have got, this is not going to be a short show. I'm hoping to keep this under 3 hours. I think I can probably keep it under 3 hours. I had to knock some stuff out. It'll be funny if we wind up going like well under 3 hours, but I've got a lot of video clips to play. There's a lot of time in there, so unless I decide to not say very many things today, which I don't think is very likely, then yeah, this is going to be a long one. So hey, let's just jump right into it. Of course, I always want to start my day off with I gotta get the right tab here. I think it's this one. Start the day off with something a little lighthearted and wholesome. My favorite animal, hands down, absolutely my favorite animal in the world, is an otter. They are absolutely adorable. They are malicious little assholes. They absolutely crack me up. This one's very wholesome.
I promise you this, I'll always look out for you. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Say
Oops. Otter says, "Here, you have rock. I'm going to bludgeon you guys with wholesome things until you will plead. You will plead for less wholesome, and I will say no. There must be more wholesome things. We are going to bathe your subconscious in wholesomeness. Also humor. You gotta keep an eye out for the guys that you're hanging out with. My sound is low. Well, let's try that. Let me know if that's any better. I don't know what would be making the sound be low otherwise. The little thing that always makes the sound low was actually not doing it today. So let me know if it continues being bad. And I can't imagine it's my position because I'm probably closer to the mic than I usually am. So let me know if it keeps being bad, and if it does, then there's a few other things I can try. All right, Brandon Wall says the sound is fine. All right, whoever said that, who was that? Big dumps and key bumps. You got to turn your volume up. I got trolled. Oh, music audio is loud. Oh, I see what he's saying. Music audio is loud. Your sound is low. So my sound is off relative to the music. You got to keep an eye out for the guys that you're spending your time around with. This is when bro does something that lets you know he wouldn't have your back in a combat scenario.
Fucking bottle, man. It's a twist off.
And so it continues. You're lying if you tell me you're a guy and you don't like sit in a room around other people sometimes and imagine if like a bunch of shooters came in all of a sudden, what you would do, or if I don't know, the weather turned sour all of a sudden and there was a tornado warning and you had to go, like, just kind of imagining these things. And it's not, at least for me, it's not like in a fearful way. It's like, I'm just kind of sitting here just sort of looking around. So what would make this really exciting? Ooh, imagine if a bunch of gunmen came in and grabbed me and my buddy was over there. Oh man, he wouldn't have my back. This is kind of like the woman when she has a bad dream and then she gets mad at you for it. Except in this case, it's actually connected to something real. Because if you see your guy given the signs that you're not going to be able to trust him, then maybe you shouldn't trust him. Okay, another funny one here. This is a celebration of the white boys. Was watching the making of documentary for Aliens, and this part really made me laugh. Bill Paxton was a Jim.
Reading the script, I had no idea how martial the atmosphere would be and how much emphasis that would have. I give money to anti-gun legislation, and I mean, I never even go to see movies about guns, especially killing people. I can't, I just think, I think it would be very difficult for an actor to do. You'd really have to sort of do a number on yourself,
I love shooting the guns. That's like the best part of my job.
His big old shit-eating grin, man. I love shooting the guns, man. It's funny at the beginning here what she says.
In the script, I had no idea how martial the atmosphere would be and how much.
I had no idea how marshaled the atmosphere was going to be, and it's like a woman who is experiencing like a military environment for the first time. I had no idea it was going to be so marshaled. There wasn't going to be enough space. I didn't feel like I had my space. It was so marshaled. Meanwhile, Bill Paxton, I like shooting the guns, man. This one, I didn't think this was going to be very good. But then the longer I watched it, the more I was like, okay, this is actually pretty good.
Told me to do an impression of Biden. I go, I don't know what he sounds like. But then when you hear someone do it, you go, that's it.
Yeah, there's young people online that do some amazing. But Biden was just, kind of initially as my father lost his job.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's
no joke. No joke. No one thinks it's a joke. Not kidding around here. Come on, like the following flaws is proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence. The people, all men are created equally. Excuse me, created, pardon, Pirates of the Caribbean.
If you told me to do an impression,
Man, it's just wild to think about that being him doing an impression of the president of the United States, and it's become so normalized that the president of the United States is a drooling retard that this is sort of the like off limits transgressive side of society, but it's like the acceptable off limits transgressive side of society. You know that they will step in line whenever they're called to. So they're kind of like the guys who just want to grill. They just want to do comedy. They want to go back to the 90s. Just make it like the 90s again, man. Just all be cool to each other. But they still want to be able to be like, edgy and transgressive and kind of a little shock jock and yeah. Okay. Based Melania. This is at the DNC. This is played at the DNC. I don't know any of the context here. It doesn't matter to me. I could not give fewer shits about the DNC, apart from the memes that come out of it. This is a great opportunity for good meme material, and nothing that happens there matters unless something happens that matters. But this matters. This is funny.
Matters.
Huh.
On January 6th, I asked Melania if we could at least tweet that while peaceful protest is the right of every American, there's no place for lawlessness or violence. She replied with one word: no.
Posting Melania's W's. I can hear that text from Melania. No. Just straightforward Slavic. No. Okay. Another funny one here. We've got two more. I got an Alex Jones funny one. And then there's something it's crazy watching the Kamala campaign try to script this campaign in real time. And you just it's so incompetently and flagrantly done that you could just see how the entire sausage is made and they don't really care. They're basically making a bet on, it's a combination of just being retarded and not knowing any better and making a bet on the odds that they can get away with it. That they can just let's just cram this through. We don't have a lot of time to fuck around. Just get it done. And if it's really obvious, we just need to keep pressing forward. Which that creates an escalating situation pretty quickly. But I guess I got a clip on that. And then we're gonna get into Trump and Theo Vaughn. So first, did I play this one already? Oh yeah, so this is how Kamala plans to pay for all the promises that she keeps making people.
There's so many Trump supporters in my comments right now asking me dumb questions like this because they clearly don't understand how the economy works. Let me explain how it's perfectly feasible for Kamala to give everybody free money. If you'll look at this chart behind me, you'll see a weather map, and you can clearly see here that almost every day in the US it rains. Like all over the country it rains. Okay. And what do we know happens after it rains? One of these things pops up. Okay. What Kamala's planning to do is when the rainbow comes up, we're going to have a task force of people go out to the end of the rainbow where they will find one of these. These kind gentlemen have been giving out pots of gold to us for generations. And what happens is the other politicians have known about this secret and they just take the gold for themselves. Like they don't even share it. But what Kamala's planning to do is pump these pots of gold into the economy and back into the hands of the American people. And I commend her for that. So y'all need to get woke, okay? It's time to be unburdened by what has been.
This is some great boomer pandering content. It's very, very well produced to pander to the boomers. And it's what I would like to call girl math. Now, this one here is pandering directly to me.
Big Mike, Big Mike, Big Bad Mike. Every morning at the mine, you can see him arrive. 6'6", weighed 245, kind of broad at the shoulders and narrow at the hip. Everybody knew they can give Big Mike no lip. Big Mike, Big Mike. Nobody knew where Mike come from. Some had said he just drifted to town and stayed all alone. Some said he come from Louisiana land, where a crashing blow from a big right hand sent a Republican to the promised land. Big John. I have to get the actual lyrics. Go from memory. Big Mike, Big Mike. And then one day at the bottom of the mine, Big Bad Mike.
And we cannot.
This one crying. Oh, the billionaires fund you, all the globalists, the Chi-Coms, death camps, cancer viruses, the vaccines. Oh, we love you. We're the good Democrats. We're the good people. We're the cat ladies. Big Mike.
Please support us at InfoWarsStore.com. The new Bulletproof t-shirt's out. We need the support. It's an amazing shirt. Support InfoWars. We support Trump. Get the new Bulletproof. Doing everything.
We love you. We're the good Democrats. We're the good people. We're the cat ladies. Big Mike.
Please support us at InfoWarsStore.com.
Big Mike.
The way he just seamlessly goes right back into the song. The man is a performance artist for the ages. We are very blessed to share a world with him. Okay, so speaking of performance art, this is the clip I was talking about. So there's some sort of meme having to do with Kamala and Doritos. I don't know. She said she eats Doritos or something like that. So they have to, of course, have a campaign stop and got to do something with Doritos. So watch how they do this.
Doritos. Ah, Dougie, there they are. Yeah. Thank you.
I know you want those.
Those two human beings have never touched each other before. Watch how she takes these. Watch their body language.
I know you want those.
That, jeez.
You see corn nuts over there,
Isn't this
too?
it?
Oh, yeah,
That's the big. There you go. That's fun. You see corn nuts over there?
So he just gave her another bag of Doritos. They just set up two different viral moments of one of the two men in her life, this emerging throuple, where Walls's wife is just on the outs somewhere, but they're creating this really bizarre relationship with Kamala and her husband and vice president. And I think that I don't think they could do otherwise. I think you're naturally going to get something like this in a situation where you have a woman head of state with a husband and then a vice president. The way that the presidential ticket is viewed, where the presidential ticket is itself viewed as kind of like a marriage. Having a male vice president with a male first husband, is that what it is just naturally going to set up something that feels really odd. There's like, it just stinks from the outset. But yeah, this whole thing is so it's cringe. It just makes you cringe. There's nothing that's authentic or real, none of these people look like they're enjoying themselves. They're all actors acting out roles, as if there's a script that they're attending to, because there are Zoom calls aplenty being had in the background, trying to coordinate all this stuff and trying to come up with ideas, and there's a lot of different cooks in the kitchen. This is not competence, not even remotely. This isn't like scheming, Machiavellian. It's very ad hoc. This was from friend of the show, Radlib. He says, far right, quote unquote, far right friends. That was a pretty spicy JQ joke we snuck in there. Meanwhile, on the far left, Caitlin Johnstone, Israel is rape. I don't care about the rest of it. Just this. All you would need is just cut it off from right here. Just that right there would make a great meme. That's such a fascinating dynamic. The horseshoe theory between the radical left and the radical right, where they sort of end up becoming kind of I don't know. They get shoved into a foxhole together, and neither one of them likes the fact that that's the case. But they're kind of like, is my time better spent going after you, like shooting inside the foxhole, or should we just like get ourselves out of a foxhole so we can fight better? It's kind of the dynamic, and I don't know. I think it's good and healthy and normal. My wife says being president is extremely stressful. What man sits by and watches his woman age and stress rapidly in front of him? Yeah, indeed. All right. Speaking of men, listen to Trump here talking about why he's never drank alcohol. This is kind of a setup for a conversation that he had with Theo Vaughn, and I've got some clips from the Theo Vaughn conversation. And so let's watch this one first. I gotta speed it up a little.
I learned myself. I had a brother, Fred. Great guy. Best looking guy. Best personality. Much better than mine. But he had a problem. He had a problem with alcohol. And he would tell me, don't drink. Don't drink. He was substantially older, and I listened to him, and I respected. But he would constantly tell me, don't drink. He'd also add, don't smoke. But he would say it over and over and over again. And to this day, I've never had a drink. And I have no longing for it. I have no interest in it. To this day, I've never had a cigarette. Don't worry, those are only two of my good things. I don't want to tell you about the bad thing. There's plenty of bad things, too. But he really helped me. I had somebody that guided me. And he had a very, very, very tough life because of alcohol. Believe me, very, very tough life. He was a strong guy, but it was a tough thing that he was going through. But I learned because of Fred. I learned. And that's what I think is so important. This was an idea that I had where if we can teach young people not to take drugs, just not to take them. When I see friends of mine that are having difficulty with not having that drink at dinner, where it's literally almost impossible for them to stop, I say to myself, I can't even understand it. Why would that be difficult? But we understand why it is difficult. The fact is, if we can teach young people, and people generally, not to start, it's really, really easy not to take them. And I think that's going to end up being our most important.
Okay, so that is a little bit of background. Because I'm not going to play like long stretch of the interview. I just found some highlights that I want to hit. But Trump went on Theo Vaughn yesterday, or at least the episode was posted yesterday, and it was one of the most revealing conversations. Many are saying it was one of the most revealing conversations that that Trump has ever had. Theo Vaughn is a brilliant interviewer. He's and it's a natural talent. Like the dude is just naturally skilled. I don't think that you could be as effortless as he is. I said he's the most effortlessly funny person on the planet. I don't think you could be as effortless as he is if it was like a calculated ruse or something like that. I think he's genuinely just vibing, and he's incredibly naturally gifted. So he has a very disarming nature where he can talk to just about anyone and be very authentic and real to them, and in like a disarming way that gets them to let down their guard, and they'll just talk. So he talked to Bernie Sanders last week, and then he talked to Trump today, and both conversations were. I watched the whole one with Trump, and I saw clips from the Bernie one, and both conversations were really good, both really well received. Many are saying that Theo Vaughn is the new Joe Rogan experience, because he's actually what Joe Rogan used to be before it kind of settled into being a little more corporatized and kind of hitting the same edgy off-limits topics as often as possible, but never branching outside of those. That's kind of the vibe that I get from Joe Rogan now. So Theo Vaughn he's not necessarily going in the crazy conspiracy direction, but he's more just sort of Like, hey, I'm an open-minded guy that I'm willing to listen to anyone or talk to anyone, and I think we should all just kind of get along. And it's it's kind of profound in its shallowness. That's the read I have on him. But him talking to Trump was just a just a work of art. The way the two of them communicate. Theo Vaughn has I got a couple clips of him. He just off the cuff, just like knee jerk, says like the first thing that enters his head, and it sometimes has. It's like how in the hell did your brain go in that direction, and how do you not have the filter? You just the words just dump right out, and it's funny as hell. But Trump is like not on that wavelength whatsoever. So he might like recognize it was attempted a joke, and he's just like, or he just goes right on past it, and Theo's sitting there just kind of chortling to himself. It's such a funny dynamic to watch. Here's a great example of one of them.
Time we had the greatest economy in history. When I was president, we had
my cousin got a boat.
Numbers. Yeah, we had the best job numbers. African American. Time we had the greatest economy in history. When I was president, we had
my cousin got a boat.
Numbers. Yeah, we had the best job numbers.
Oh yeah, my cousin got a boat. Then here's talking about opioids.
Opioids bad too.
Yeah,
I think that's bad because everyone thinks, in many cases, they think they're going to do away with pain, and literally the time is so short. If you take it for like 2 weeks, you're almost addicted to it. It's incredible when you.
Oh, well, all of that is horrible. But why do we allow that?
How did you get addicted? How did?
No, I would just do cocaine. That was really So not just
That's down and dirty, right?
Yeah, and this is
opioids bad.
So then we'll have some more on the opioid thing here in just a second. But Taylor Brown says Trump's going on his usual stump speech, and Theo just casually, "Oh yeah, my cousin got a boat during the yeah, right." It's like unintentionally funny. I think he's intentionally doing it. Like he knows that that's a thing. Like he knows that he can do that and get away with it. And there's a gamble there, because if you just reflexively say the first thing that comes to mind, you have to be incredibly ruthless about what you populate your mind with. If you're going to be someone in the public eye in the recent climate. So there's a real sophistication to his. That's what's so fascinating to me is like watching Theo Vaughn's archetype. That his whole thing is that he's shallow and kind of a bumpkin, but it's done in such a way that it could only be accomplished if you had a really sophisticated sense of humor and understanding of the world around you. So it's a really there's a fascinating paradox there between profoundness and shallowness. The cat is asking to be let out, so I'll be right back. I knew I forgot to do something. All right, so another clip here.
Constitutional. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. All of a sudden, they're telling him to get out, or they threatened him.
But who are
and
they
he is
when
an
they say
angry
that?
person. Well, I would say Schumer, Pelosi, and numerous other people. The heads of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And they did. They threatened him violently, I think. And he
You
didn't
think
want to
they
get out.
really
Remember, he said, only God will get me out, right? Only God will get me.
Somebody dressed up like God and just chased him out of there.
Yeah, and what happened is
someone dressed up like God and chased him out of there. So it's interesting to me to see responses. Well, first of all, one of the things he said there was he said they chased him out, or said something. He didn't say chased him out, but he said it was done violently. He thought they threatened him with violence, which is kind of an interesting thing for him to say. That to me, that sounds like him saying that he's heard credible reports that like behind the scenes credible reports that there was actually violent threats made, and he's kind of leaking that there. That's how that struck me. He could be just shooting off the cuff, but that's an interesting thing for him to say. I like watching the reply, or looking at the replies to some of these interviews with Trump and Tucker. When Tucker goes on someone else's show that's more kind of catered to normies or generic libs, from like a political frame, if it's like a show like this that's like for young guys, the comedy shows and that sort of thing, they are very open to being like, "Oh, I've been told that Tucker or Trump is like this all this time, and I never bothered to actually pay any attention, but he's a lot more relatable than I thought." I see that over and over and over again, especially in Theo Von's audience. Anytime someone like that has come on, he's got a very the reason they like him is because he has that very offbeat thing where they're like, it's like out of step with the mainstream, and sort of he's got a kind of like a Sigma vibe. That's the thing that's attractive to him. So being a Trump supporter or pro Elon or anything like that right now has a very Sigma quality to it, and Sigma is in. So this guy here, finding the narrative, he says, "It's wild to see how caring and concerned Donald was for Theo in that moment. It felt like a grandfather giving advice to someone they love. I've never seen that side of him." And there was a whole bunch of different comments like this. People who were, a lot of them were telling Theo, like, "Dude, you are an absolute legend. It's amazing that you're able to swing all these interviews, and you're the best podcast in the world right now." And this audience, this is brilliant campaigning from Trump to go for this type of audience. The Theo Von, the Bryson DeChambeau, the Aiden Ross, going and sitting down and talking to their guys and being able to carry on a conversation and hold your own and be interesting and fun. The Logan and Jake Paul, that whole audience, that is the exact audience that Trump needs to cater to, that Trump needs to pander to, because they're the audience that will determine what is considered cool. The rest of the world is going to revolve around them. So this is when they say Trump's not campaigning or that he's dumb because he's not like spending a bunch of Facebook ads or something, they're missing the plot. This is what's happening, is Trump is out here. You want Trump to cater to white boys? That's what he's doing. He's not going, "Hey, white boys, you boy who is white, vote for me," because that would be retarded. This is how you cater to him. Another clip here, as proof of what I was just saying.
But your thing is going really great. My son's a big fan of yours, Barron.
Really, Barron is?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
he just graduated high school, right?
That's right. He just did. He knows you very well. He said, "Dad, he's big."
Wow.
Yeah, big one.
That's cool.
So that's good. Well, that's where it is nowadays, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I can't believe that we're able to get platforms. And I started in my kitchen, and then just evolved out of there.
That's fantastic.
Also, a funny thing to notice here is that Theo dressed up for this interview. He's like a big kid. He's like a big kid that has the awareness to know that, holy shit, I'm not a kid. I need to act like I'm an adult, but I'm a kid, and I'm trying to figure this thing out, man. I just love his whole vibe. Man, we got to pray for Barron. The level of like his life path is he doesn't get to choose from many different life paths. Let's say that he is a man of destiny, whether he wants to be or not. Because if he does not take up his father's mantle in some significant capacity, then he's always going to have a bad reputation. There's always going to be like the failed son, the son who didn't live up to his father's standard. Like, that's the way he's going to be viewed. If he does take up his father's mantle, then he is signing up for who knows what. We have got to pray for Barron. I say that unironically. This was probably the funniest of the riffs that Theo went on in this interview.
Like, okay, well, I had a drink, then I can do this.
Is cocaine a stronger
Oh yeah.
Up?
Yeah. Cocaine
So,
will make
you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know, and you'll be your own street lamp. You're freaking.
And is that a good feeling? Well,
No,
it's
horrible.
a miserable feeling.
But you do it anyway, just like the guy you're saying with the scotch. Like, okay, well, I had a drink, then I can do this.
Is cocaine a stronger
oh yeah.
up?
Yeah.
I need to see that again.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know, and you'll be your own street lamp. You're freaking.
And is that a good feeling? Well,
No,
it's
You'll be your own street lamp. And is that a good feeling? Yeah, innocent. Innocent is a really good word. Is a really good word for him. He's very honest and transparent about his own shortcomings, and his own issues. You know, like didn't have the greatest upbringing, but doesn't resent it. He's got a great love for his people, and very transparent about his experience as an addict and dealing with addiction and all the ugly things that does to a man. Like he's very transparent. Theo is one of our guys. Absolutely. I would prefer that he not become more politically enlightened than he is, because it's probably going to be a downer for him. I like his sort of naive, kind of youthful exuberance and idealism, and just wanting to live in this world and kind of projecting out this energy of, man, we're just all going to get along, man. Let's sit down, let's talk, let's have a good time. Yeah, that's good. We need to retain that spirit. We don't need to all have that spirit, but we need to retain that spirit where it exists. So a slightly different spirit here. I don't know that you could go too much further apart in terms of masculine archetypes here, but Dan Bilzerian went on Patrick Bet David, and they had a real zinger of a conversation. I listened to this one last night, and it would be funny to go back through and listen to the first half of it again, because like the first half or so was really collegial, like really just going kind of just jamming along. And then the subject of the tiny hats arose, and it deteriorated very quickly.
They've done so many things that, would constitute an act of war against us. I mean, USS Liberty, Lebanon Affair, I mean, it can go on and on and on and on and on. But, I think they knew about 9/11. I think they had JFK assassinated. The first thing that he wanted to do, right before he died was, make AIPAC a foreign entity, and not allow them to have nukes. And then all of a sudden this fucking guy's dead. And Jack Ruby, who is Jack Rubenstein, I mean, it's just like, and then you just, I don't know, man, I can't ignore all the shit that they've done. They sold our secrets. Netanyahu lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. We fought all these fucking wars. My friends have died over there. And I just look at what they provided us with, and it's fucking, it's not nothing. It's like a negative, it's not, even if they just didn't do jack shit, that would be, bad, but they've actually done things to hurt us over and over and over again. So like this whole thing of they're our greatest allies, just complete fucking bullshit. And, we send them $100 billion, then they send AIPAC $100 million, and then they distribute it to our politicians, and every politician is a little fucking AIPAC handler walking around and telling them what to fucking say and how to vote. And it's just like,
whew. Josh Ham says, if a true expression of white boy love is a man sharing those putting those words that close together was a little unnerving. I got to admit, the first time I was reading through it. If a true expression of white boy love is a man sharing a YouTube video with his girl, things are better now. Then obviously Trump going onto the YouTube podcast circuit is expressly reaching out to white fellas. Exactly. My wife said may have to rethink some of my opinions on Dan. I mean, I don't think you're gonna have to. You could probably retain most of them, honestly. Listening to the rest of the interview, he spent a long time talking about why he doesn't believe in marriage, or doesn't think that guys should get married, or that he doesn't really see the upside in it. He's not opposed to it necessarily. He's just like, this seems like a complete net negative, which I suppose he says he acknowledges is from his perspective as a guy who's already wealthy. So the way he framed it was, I'm betting half of my net worth that this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, and I just don't like those odds. So yeah, I think he's a good illustration of how someone doesn't have to be our guy to be our guy. Like, very clearly, I'm not going to be in an alternate universe. I'm not going to be chasing this guy around trying to berate him for being degenerate. I'm just going to be like, all right, man, you go, you do your thing over there, and I'm going to encourage people to not join you. So yeah, it's I think the our guys thing is people get too strict with their boundaries on that, because they're like, oh well, if you're trying to maintain a ruling coalition, then you can't have these little things where people say your thing, but they're actually not agreeing with you, and they're trying to subversively undermine you, and yeah, that's when you're trying to maintain a ruling coalition. That's not when you're trying to to sprout yourself out from the ground. You can't be super choosy about your allies early on. If someone has some kind of influence or holds some kind of sway, and they're saying they're giving lip service to your ideas, that's a win. This is him on getting into the Jewish religious texts. We're going to speed this one up a little bit because we still got a lot of stuff to go through today. Whew.
I think they're fighting for them.
Forgot to share the tab.
So you think the Middle East and the world would be a better place if Israel didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Israel's committed, so many terrorist attacks. They're stealing land right now. They're operating apartheid. They're currently committing a genocide on Palestinians. Like, do you believe in the genocide they're committing?
I think they're fighting for themselves and they're defending themselves.
Do you think that's defense? Well, when 1,200 people died, of which the 1,200 you've killed, and admitted that you've killed a lot during, your hand.
I will tell you this. The part I question, where people who are Jewish can't stand when I say this, I don't know how you and Netanyahu claim you have the best intelligence in the world, Mossad, and you didn't know that on October 7th they're attacking.
They knew about it. They wanted it to happen, so they had a reason to take that. Yeah, they wanted a reason to take the land.
I totally get it.
And they killed their own citizens. And they claimed that all these people got raped. That was bullshit. They claimed beheaded babies. That was bullshit. Everything that they said was a fucking complete. Not only was it a lie, but they committed all those atrocities themselves to the Palestinians and been caught doing it. In fact, they just got caught gang raping Palestinians. How many babies have they killed? All the things that they accused the Palestinians of, or Hamas of, or whatever, they're guilty of 100-fold themselves.
So you
and they've been doing that. Like, October 7th wasn't the start of this. Like, the start of this was Nakba. They've done so many.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, so I mean, this is not like, it's not like October 7th is like, there's all of a sudden they just came over there unsolicited and just killed people. Like, they have been killing Palestinians for years and years, operating two sets of justice. It's like they have the justice for the Palestinians and the justice for the Israelis. And if you read the Talmud, like, if you're not Jewish, you're basically not a human. You're like, like cattle. If a Jew is killed by, somebody that's not Jewish, then it's the death penalty. If a Jew kills somebody that's not a Jew, then, you can't kill them. It's not the death penalty. Like, they literally like segregate in their Bible.
They're very protective of themselves. I don't think anybody can debate that. I don't think it's a.
Well, it's not the problem isn't that they're protective of themselves. The problem comes when you think that you're better than other people, and you think it's okay to lie to anybody that's not a Jew. You think it's okay to steal from people that are not a Jew. You have two sets of standards. The problem with that is it allows you to rationalize anything, right? And human beings are generally self-serving creatures. So if your fundamental religious belief system allows you to operate in such a way that you believe there isn't consequences to stealing from other people, killing other people, raping, kids that are under 9 years old, like, if you think those things are okay, then, how are you going to operate? Because to me, like, my moral code keeps me on track.
I do appreciate the profound irony of Dan Bilzerian ending that screed with talking about the strength of his moral code. But I mean, I do think that I don't think that he's insincere when he says that. I think that he has a proclivity for degeneracy and is well acknowledged. He's self-acknowledged that he has this, like they talked in this episode about how pleasure is like a massive pursuit for him. And he basically says that he's a slave to it. He's very, very open and honest about it. But he's also, virtues like loyalty, I'll bet you this guy is profoundly loyal on a personal basis. If he has like a brotherhood, like he will die for his brotherhood. That's the vibe he's always given off. So when he talks about his moral code at the end there, I don't think he's being insincere. I think it's very obvious that it's a that there's a double standard, so to speak. But I think that he's sincere in that double standard. He's like, I'm just different than other people. I'm just better than other people. Yeah, this video was played on YouTube, and I'm streaming it on YouTube right now for whatever that's worth. Whatever, if that means you need to recalibrate some settings as you're in your things that are allowed to be said in public meter, then do so accordingly. And if not, then thumbs up for you. Here's another one.
Muslims aren't the problem. The open borders and motherfuckers in the media attacking nationalism, pushing DEI, transgenderism, and destroying moral values are the problem. August 4th. If you don't put America first as a U.S. politician, you are committing treason. Supporting Israel is bad for America. Netanyahu is a convicted war criminal, and Israel is not our ally. We fought way too many wars for Israel, and we certainly don't need to give them any more money. July 25th. These idiots have ruined movies. Everything they put out is literally propaganda. And then all of a sudden, we got scripture here. For what shall it profit? For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Is this recent, comments you're making about Israel a recent thing, or have you always had these beliefs?
It's more recent. I didn't really realize what a problem it was until recently, and then everybody was scared to say something about it. My brother told me, like, you can't say anything about it. They'll fucking kill you. Like, everybody basically said that I couldn't say anything about it. And actually now they're literally trying to kick me off the board of my company because of those tweets. Like, shit, yeah, I've definitely had a lot of negative pushback, a lot of my Jewish friends, but I don't give a fuck. It's like one of those things where I know that it's the right thing, and the fact that everybody else is scared to say it makes me, feel obligated to be vocal about it.
Why do you think it's the right thing?
Because I know that they're a fucking parasite. Like, they provide the U.S. absolutely no value. They've done so many things that, would constitute, an act of war against us. I mean, USS Liberty, Lebanon Affair, I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. But, and I think they knew about 9/11. I think they had JFK assassinated. The first thing that he wanted to do, right before he died was, make AIPAC a foreign entity, and not allow them to have nukes. And then all of a sudden this fucking guy's dead. And Jack Ruby, who was Jack Rubenstein, I mean, it's just and then.
So that was the earlier part of the clip that I played earlier. I was going to play him in the other order. I left the other one open. So it's interesting to me to imagine sitting in a business meeting or like a board meeting with him, what that must be like, especially if he's doing he's a CEO or whatever, and he's or chairman of the board or whatever. I don't remember what he said, but imagining him going and interfacing with some generic Fortune 500 brand and having negotiations on a subject or something like that. I'm just imagining him in a really tight suit with his hair all gelled up and everything, walking in there, and then these eggheads being like, what in the fuck? How do I even? We don't even speak the same language. Okay. Speaking of different languages, I thought this was a really interesting clip yesterday from Bennis Phylactery tweeted it out. He said, Hawala is a method of money transfer derived from Islamic finance. Extreme high-trust networks, Hawaladars, using trustless technology, crypto, make interdiction virtually impossible as the money never, quote, touches the ground. Obviously, no one should attempt this.
The main analog method of terrorist money laundering is called Hawala. And while crypto is famously supposed to be trustless, Hawala is 100% trust-based. The way it works is, suppose I'm your cousin and I live in the United States and you live in Pakistan and you want to send me $10,000. You'll go to your Hawaladar, your Hawala broker there in Pakistan, and you'll say, I want to send my cousin $10,000 in America. He takes your $10,000, sticks it under his mattress or whatever. Then he calls the Hawala broker in the United States and he says, this guy's sending $10,000. The Hawaladar in the United States just gives me the $10,000, and now the two brokers have an imbalance on their ledger. Pakistan guy is up 10K, US guy is down 10K, and they process dozens or hundreds of transactions just like this, and sometimes they do the math in their head, sometimes they just write it on scraps of paper. It's deliberately very poorly documented. And then eventually, on some deliberately irregular interval, they settle accounts. And the way that generally works is through some transmission of gold, gems, drugs, sometimes big bills, or sometimes it'll be favors. Maybe the U.S. Hawaladar has some connection in the Pakistani government, and he gets the Pakistani Hawaladar's nephew a job or something, and that's how they settle up. But the point is that when the store of value actually changes hands, it does so in a big lump that isn't explicitly traceable to any particular transaction. And for Muslims, at least, it has the advantage of being connected to this concept of Islamic finance, which means US and UK authorities are really, really squirrely about going after it. But obviously there's this big choke point, which is that somebody has to actually travel across the planet with a briefcase full of cash or gold or gems or whatever. And that's really the only point at which the abstract concept of value has to leave these people's brains and actually go into the real world where Western law enforcement can intercept it. And so you can imagine a situation in which instead of putting your cousin on a plane with a briefcase of cash and trying to get it through security, you could put your cousin on a plane with just a memorized passphrase. And if you were nervous about your cousin, you could send 3 of your cousins or 4 of your cousins, each with a separate memorized passphrase. And if you did it that way, you could afford to true up your accounts a lot more frequently and a lot less regularly, so that there aren't big spikes and big intervals for someone who's monitoring the blockchain to detect. And again, to get back to this concept of hugging, this is another system that Western authorities really can't shut down without shutting down massive, massive stores of value in, corporations on the S&P 500 and major universities, and even, the government has a pretty substantial stake in Bitcoin. And so there's a kind of meta-aggressive behavior that you can engage in, which isn't really targetable or prosecutable by the state, which is to develop and encourage mass adoption of these technologies that have multiple purposes like this.
And I must say, it's amazing to me that these non-American people with a value set that diverges significantly from American values have been able to conceive of such an extra legal system to sustain themselves, clearly in basically open defiance of organized crime, at least the spirit of organized crime and terrorism laws. These are very serious things that they've chosen to do. It's very sobering to realize that there are people like that in the world who can operate that way, who can actually manage to build and sustain pretty sophisticated networks that operate outside the legal system. It's very sobering. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. It seems like it's important knowledge to have in these times of legal uncertainty. It's very good to be aware of all the possible extra legal networks that might exist out there, so you can be sure to protect yourself from danger. Relatedly, here's an interesting point. Greg Reese from InfoWars has done a little bit here on how Russia is becoming a safe haven for traditional family values.
Russia is now officially offering safe haven for people trying to escape the anti-human agenda of modern-day liberalism. Foreign nationals are now able to apply for temporary residence in Russia based on the rejection of their country's policies, such as the destructive neoliberal ideals, which run counter to traditional Russian spiritual and moral values. Under this new immigration option, certain requirements will be waived. Applicants will not have to prove knowledge of the Russian language, its history, or its laws. The Russian Foreign Ministry has been instructed to start issuing 3-month visas to such applicants as early as next month. In a recent interview with American journalist Charles Bausman in Moscow, it was discussed how many Russian Orthodox Christians believe an exodus to Russia is prophecy.
How did it turn out that this country, Russia, controls this enormous landmass, but it's only about 140 million people, and it's definitely not enough. You need like a billion people really to fill this large of a country, and it has the resources to support that kind of a population. And one of the things that some Christians say is, well, this is actually God's will, that he left this giant country relatively empty, with the idea that it would then be filled by people from all over the world who would come here and seek protection from the craziness that's happening that seems to be taking over the West.
Tucker Carlson recently asked Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin why he thinks the West is on the road to ruin.
I think that everything started with individualism. When you identify individualism with the man, with the human nature, you cut all the relations to everything else. So individual, it was the key and is still key concept that was put in the center of liberal ideology. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was only liberalism. There were only two collective identities to liberation from gender, and that has led to transgenders, to LGBT, and new form of sexual individualism. So sex is something optional. And the last step that is not yet totally made is liberation from human identity, humanity optional. So you can choose your individual identity to be human, not to be human, and that has a name: transhumanism, posthumanism, to have the possibility to choose to be or not to be human. So classical liberalism was in favor of democracy. Democracy understood as the power of majority, of consensus, of individual freedom that should be combined somehow with the freedom of other. And now we have totally the next station already, next phase, new liberalism. Now you are invited to liberate yourself from individuality. It is your duty to be progressive. It is prescription. So liberalism fought during its history against any kind of prescription, and now either be progressive liberal or you are done.
How do you explain this phenomenon I've noticed where for over 70 years...
That might have been the best, most concise explanation of that phenomenon that I've ever heard. It was that was the notion that was really driving my move away from libertarianism and toward the reactionary right, toward monarchy, toward elite theory. It was that recognition about liberalism and its inevitability in paradoxically manifesting illiberalism. That actually the world that the liberals describe would be great to live in, but like by them describing it, they are destroying it. By them existing, they exist by describing it, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I want to live in that world," and then they're given the power to then destroy it. So that was the key insight really that drove me. I can think of all the different places I've been as I've had, like the physical locations that I've been out walking or driving or whatever, when I've had these little flashes of insight. And he put that into like a minute, perfectly describing the evolution from humanism to transhumanism to post-humanism completely.
A group of people in the West and the United States, liberals, effectively defended the Soviet system and Stalinism, and many personally participated in Stalinism. But in the year 2000, leadership of this country changed, and Russia became their main enemy. Why the change?
I think that they have discovered, they have identified in Putin precisely what Putin is. So he is a kind of leader, political leader, defending traditional values. This hatred is not just casual, something casual or some mood. It is not.
It's not casual. It's very serious.
So it's metaphysical.
Progressivism is the antithesis of traditional human values. The further one progresses on that path, the less human they become. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Definitely recommend following Greg Reese, subscribing to his Substack. I'm subscribed to it. He does really good stuff. Talks about he's done a lot of stuff on orthodoxy. He lived in Moscow for a year until just recently. I think he just moved back to the States. But he talks about lots of off-limits stuff. He talked to Austin Whitsitt. That was where I think I first heard of him. Talked about Austin Whitsitt's toroidal Earth model. And yeah, he's done lots of big pharma stuff. He's basically what you'd expect from InfoWars, but it's very serious, and it's got a much more explicitly pro-Christian bent in a very kind of sober way. And I like the way he's been documenting Russia, because it's hard for me to the Russian culture is very foreign, which is kind of funny because I'm a member of the Russian Orthodox Church, but it's the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia. But it's the culture is it's very different from the West. It's got some similarities, and a lot of that is because of Christianity. And Christianity is kind of the point at which you could start to see both of them more clearly and understand them for what they are. So yeah, definitely go follow Greg Reese, and he's got some good stuff. We've talked a lot about biology, and he's got an announcement here. The Network School. So he has the book he wrote, The Network State, which I really strongly recommend. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It's not that long. Very easy listen, and he is an extraordinary thinker. He is genius level for sure, and an extremely autistically good communicator. So he's started the Network School. We got an island. That's right. Through the power of Bitcoin, we now have a beautiful island near Singapore where we're building the Network School. We're starting with a 90-day pop-up that runs from September 23 to December 23, right after the Network State Conference. Rent is only $1,000 a month with roommates or $2,000 a month solo, and we have plenty of day passes for visitors. So go apply online at ns.com, then read more below. So ns.com. If this is something you'd be interested in, going to the Network School, go check it out. 3-month, 90-day pop-up. The dark talent. As motivation, I've always wanted to expand equality of opportunity around the world. Because my father was born in a desperately poor country, but with the right opportunity, he was able to make something of himself. Like dark matter, he was dark talent. And for more than a decade, I've been thinking about how to give others who are similarly situated the chance to make something of themselves. That is, I've been thinking about how to empower the dark talent of the world. The analogies that he uses are so they're just perfect. As soon as he says it, it just clicks that yes, that is a thing. This is a really useful model of the world. He's a fantastic model builder. U.S. universities used to fill this role, even imperfectly, and I loved Stanford when I taught there years ago. But the data shows they've declined in recent days, and they're just not affordable or accessible to most of the world. So it's time for a new approach. And thanks to Saraswati and Satoshi, I have the resources to endow a new internet-first institution, the Network School. The purpose of the Network School is to articulate a vision of peace, trade, internationalism, and technology, even as the rest of the world talks about war, trade war, nationalism, and statism. To revitalize democracy for the internet era with digital polities and verifiable votes. To train the next generation to be not just leaders of companies, but inspirations for their communities. And to pursue truth, health, and wealth by leveling up our attendees personally, physically, and professionally. Let me now describe in more detail how the Network School works, who it's for, and how to apply. How it works. The Network School is for people of all ages, not just the youth. And it's meant to be a lifelong rather than a one-off with both a structured and an unstructured component. The structured part is about continuous daily self-improvement, learning skills, burning calories, and earning currency. Meanwhile, the unstructured part is about having fun and hanging out with people of similar values. For short, learn, burn, earn, and fun. Learn. The first part of the Network School is about learning technologies and humanities. As motivation, the existing model of U.S. undergraduate education is broken. You pay $100K plus for a 4-year degree and then budget nothing for maintenance over the course of your life. It's like paying $100K plus for a new car and budgeting nothing for maintenance. By contrast, the Network School is about continuous education. It's for remote workers, engineers, creators, and digital nomads who want to integrate learning into their lives rather than stopping everything to be a full-time student. There's almost never been a better time in the world to be a lifelong student, to actually be realistic. Where it's not just like, oh, I went and I learned this hard physical skill, that you learn a body of the physical skill, and then you're going to tap out the necessary physical skills you need to keep adding on over the decades. Whereas today, it's realistic to be able to learn really high leverage skills relatively quickly, and I'm talking in a matter of weeks or months. You can learn those skills. They're very high leverage, so you can leverage them quickly to be, they can support you well, and then you can go learn new skills that can do the same thing. You have to be able to put yourself in the position to begin that process, but once you do it, it's almost easier now than it's ever been to scale that really rapidly. Here's how that works. We set up many classrooms where you can drop in to see the problem of the day. You solve that problem and a proctor awards you a crypto credential, a free non-transferable NFT sent to your crypto wallet that establishes proof of learn. Often your solution will involve putting code on GitHub or Replit to show you understand a concept, or posting content to your social media profile to show you understand a new AI tool. And over time, these crypto credentials actually build up a crypto resume proving what you know. Our initial material focuses on founding tech communities as distinct from tech companies. As such, it touches on everything from crypto, AI, and social media to history, politics, and filmmaking. It should be useful even if you're just growing a traditional company or building a following. Over time, of course, every branch of the sciences and humanities becomes relevant when building a community. So if this initial experiment works, we can expand branch by branch to build a new kind of university. But we're intentionally starting with something simple. Our learning is about continuous education, about solving the problem of the day. Burn. The second part of the network school is about burning calories. Longevity is important, but 20th century communities just aren't physically set up to maximize physical fitness. Quite the contrary, the default mode of Western society is sedentary and sugary. Those who want to escape this need to roll their own nutrition and workout program, which takes time, money, and energy. Greetings, sir.
Hello.
Speaking of physical fitness, I saw the pictures you posted from your weekend visitor, and you were looking rather svelte, sir.
Well, the cameras are lying, I suppose.
How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good. Have you been listening along?
I have.
Okay.
I have been listening.
So you're up to date with what we're talking about. This network school idea I think this is a big one. Anything that biology gets involved in, I want to be aware of, I want to know about, but I really see some legs on this. And if you're a young dude out there looking for some direction, might I suggest looking into the network school? All right, he says, we're changing that. I've teamed up with my friend Brian Johnson to set up a blueprint-inspired food and fitness for the entire network school community.
Jeez. Speaking of slop.
Yeah, right. You're gonna have an entire cabinet full of supplements that you're required to to add intravenously every morning.
In in a year, everyone there is gonna look like vampires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're gonna get a whole bunch of nerds too. You're gonna get all the it's gonna over select for guys who are prone to nerdiness, so they're already gonna be like inclined toward being pale, and now they're just gonna be translucent.
Skin. They're gonna be drinking blood.
He says Brian will be on campus to set up the program, then his designates will maintain it on a daily basis. I got to give it to the dude, the hustle he's created here. So he's got all this legwork that he's funded and he's experimented on himself. Now he goes and he sets up the program, and he has people that he's hired who are going to run it for him while he goes and does whatever he wants. That is an impressive hustle. He says, like many of you, I've been both fit and fat at various times, so this is a product I want to use myself. Thoughts?
I think being fit and not fat is good. Getting blood transfusions from your children is not, the way I'd go about that.
Yeah. Every member of the network school gets a daily workout slot with a semi-personal trainer, much like a group fitness class. You run and lift in the morning at your chosen time, getting a proof of workout from your trainer. Your group holds you accountable for showing up. Then you get a box with your blueprint-optimized healthy meals and head to work. The whole point is to provide willpower as a service where the community provides the discipline. We're starting with the basics of running, lifting, eating, and sleeping properly. The initial goal is to hit the limits of your genetics. But if all goes well, the biotech founders that come to the network school will eventually help us all surpass our genetic limits to live much longer than we otherwise would. Do you know what this is going to produce? This is going to produce a bunch of warrior founders.
No.
This is they're making this is a military program.
Okay, maybe, but like having an island full of vegan vampires is not going.
I doubt they're going to be vegan.
Brian Johnson's a vegan. That's his whole program.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if they make it vegan, just because of. I mean, maybe they're gonna borrow on his brand credibility that much. I would be surprised. But even still, like, I'm not saying this is like they're going to be a bunch of chads, but I'm saying that they're going to be they're building a military of founders. that are organized and ritualized in a disciplined fashion like a military, but they're also like nerds. I think that aspect of it is actually kind of creepy. Now that I'm reading it like this, I think it is kind of creepy. It has very creepy potential.
I think it works well coming off of the heels of that Dugan little snippet you played.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is like distilled. It's so interesting. There's kind of like two dissonant things going on here.
Yes.
Where on one hand, you've got this really interesting network state thing. And then on the other, you've got like transhumanism.
I also think it's like I did this conversation yesterday with with the German guys. We had a really interesting talk. I want to get them on here. We like to have them come and tell us about Germany from a German's perspective. And I've been thinking about these recurring paradoxes, where it's like we're flying deeper and deeper into a paradox. One of the ones I talked about yesterday that I've mentioned on the show here is the way that the internet was both massively centralizing and massively decentralizing. It did both. And the decentralizing aspect means you get the positives of decentralization, but you also get the negatives. And the centralizing aspect means you get the positives of the centralizing aspect and the negatives of it. So you wind up with with a quadrant here. And then it's our responsibility, I think, when we run it, like this is revealing something about reality to us. The way that these patterns develop throughout history, and you can't eliminate the pattern. You can't get rid of it. You can't step outside of it. The only thing you can do is operate within it and maximize for the best quadrants. So there's going to be, as an example, there's going to be the massive decentralizing force. So on the decentralization front, you want to get the best of the decentralization benefits and minimize the decentralization negatives. The same on the centralizing side. And there's no winning this. This isn't like you attain a perfect state. Because if you attain that perfect state, well, there that was utopia. You were pursuing utopia. And I think pursuing utopia is the greatest. There's another paradox here that we were made, as C.S. Lewis says, we are made for another place. We have this built-in desire for utopia. And yet, paradoxically, if you try to create utopia, you create hell. So you have to work toward creating utopia while also not working toward creating utopia. Does this make sense?
Yeah. I wonder how. I don't think Brian Johnson is going to live to be 200 years old or whatever he thinks he's going to live to.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't consistently eating at a significant calorie deficit, which he does every day. Allegedly, that's supposed to improve longevity. But I don't know how you do that long term without just crashing your metabolism. Because so if high energy, high octane, high productivity, and output is the goal, I don't know, they may 500 calories worth of tofu every day. I don't think it's going to lend itself to that goal.
They may have to. So what's interesting is take this entire thing and change the diet thing. Have the diet program be run by, I don't know, Paul Saladino or something,
or me.
Or you, yes. Have Cooper run the diet aspect of it. That's the great thing about what he's creating here is he's not just creating this specific system. He's creating this model that can then be used and applied in a bunch of different ways. So we talked about Hadrian last week, where their goal is to build supply chain as a service technology, where they can sell you a supply chain. And what he's building here is a university model. So they can sell you a university model. I'm not saying you have to buy you have to pay them for the rights to use the structure. You just can create a structure like this now. He's creating the model mimetically. And now you can duplicate this model and you can tweak the things that you do want and tweak the ones you don't want. He says, again, we're starting small, and so the burning calories part is about lifelong health and the workout of the day. Earn. The third part of the network school is about earning currency. We'll have crypto prizes of the day for open source projects, AI content creation, and micro tasks. There will be $1,000 bounties every day for the duration of the program, similar to the various prizes I've posted on Twitter and Farcaster. And community members will post their own prizes. So they're now... I've got a long tweet from Andrew Torba in a little bit that's we'll hail back to this. So put a pin in this for now. But this is a brilliant way to begin funding education. Because this is something you can, if you believe in this and you have money that you can go contribute to this sort of thing, this is a new model for funding education that I think is also extremely adaptable. Next, in keeping with the overall theme of self-improvement, we'll have office hours to help with your job, your career, your visa status, and your funding. We're much more invested in you than a typical college career center because our interests are aligned. The more you earn and the stronger you are financially, the more you'll eventually have to reinvest in the community. Finally, we'll have visitor hours with famous visiting technologists. As my friend Sriram noticed, when investors come through Singapore, I typically do a podcast with them. Many will also visit the network school to meet attendees, invest in them, or hire them. They're building patronage networks. That's what this is. This is like this is bridging the digital and physical. This is like the next, he's seeing where things are going, for better or for worse. This is going to be this style of organization is the type that's going to thrive most in the coming world. Others will give remote talks, and you can see the quality of visitors from the speakers in our conference and podcast. So earning is about constant career development and the prize of the day. So you've got the long term and the short term. Fun. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, of course, so the fourth part of the network school is about fun. This is the unstructured component. It's most of what you're here for. It's just about assembling great people in one place. Positive, some people who believe in technological progress, internationalism, and capitalism. It's your internet friends coming from URL to IRL. Stanford introduced the concept of residential education, but this takes it to the next level. In fact, our initial location is very similar to Stanford. It's beautiful and sunny and less than an hour from a major city, Singapore, with an international airport, Changi. I have no idea how you pronounce that. That means you can be heads down during the week, head into the city on the weekends for fun, and get to just about anywhere in Asia within the same day. This is convenient for the greater than 50% of the world that lives within the Valerie Paris circle. We'll do some group outings too, but most of the fun will be up to you. Who the network school is for. There are 4 lenses on this: demographical, ideological, professional, and personal. Demographically, as mentioned, our focus is the dark talent. The more respect you have for legacy institutions and the more respect they have for you, the less suitable you'll be as an applicant. So the network school is for Indian engineers and African founders, for makers from the Midwest and the Middle East, for Chinese liberals and Latin American libertarians, for Southeast Asia's rising technologists and Europe's remaining capitalists. It's for everyone who doesn't feel part of the establishment, but it's definitely not only for tech because a community does not run on tech alone. Ideologically, the network school is for people who admire Western values, but who also recognize that Asia is in ascendance and that the next world order is more properly centered around the internet, around neutral code, than around either declining Western institutions or a rising Chinese state. For example, the network school is for those who understand that Bitcoin succeeds the Federal Reserve, that encryption is the only true protection against unreasonable search and seizure, that AI can deliver better opinions than any Delaware magistrate, and that democracy can be rejuvenated with cryptography. It is for those who believe in technology, harmony, internationalism, and capitalism. It is for those who want Silicon Valley without San Francisco. And for those who want to found, fund, and find not just new companies and currencies, but new cities and new communities. Professionally, our ideal applicant is capable of remote work or has enough savings to support themselves while at the network school. For our initial cohort, we're seeking 3 major groups of people in particular: writers, artists, influencers, and filmmakers, trainers, athletes, coaches, and clinicians, and founders, engineers, designers, and investors. These are roughly the demographics focused on learning, burning, and earning, respectively. Of course, if you fall outside those categories but still think you have something to contribute, you should still apply to the network school. Personally, I should mention that the network school is a product that I built for the young version of myself, the aspiring young engineer. This is the community I want to live in, a techno-capitalist college town, a Stanford 2.0 that's globally affordable and genuinely meritocratic. So I'll be on campus full time. Brian Johnson and I are supervising the setup of everything from bench press to French press, and will eventually be recruiting faculty in the form of content creators, fitness influencers, and angel investors for the learn, burn, and earn portions of our program respectively, but all that in due time. Okay, so how do you apply to the network school? Just go to ns.com and click apply. We've set up a simple Luma page where you can apply in a few minutes. Then if you pass review, we'll send a second application where you pay rent. As mentioned, our monthly rent is $1,000 with roommates and $2,000 solo. We also have daily and weekly rates too, but short-term visitors still need to apply. The rent gets you an air-conditioned room on a beautiful island with internet, gym, and access to all courses and community services. You'll still need to handle your flights and pay for your food, but we think the overall package is extremely affordable. And so the network school could be an amazing option for individuals or small teams looking to save money, get fit, and level up while living in paradise. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Just fill out the application at ns.com, also linked in the tweet below. This is an extremely powerful idea that I think it is. I think I want to create a version of it. I want to at least be involved in creating a version of it ourselves. Okay. RFK. So RFK's VP, Nicole Shanahan, went on Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu a couple days ago, and had some interesting things to say. The RFK campaign has been probably one of the worst campaigns that I've ever seen. It's been genuinely shocking how bad it has been. But I also think that they are going to have a big role to play on. Hold on here. They're going to have a big role to play on shifting the direction of the election, because RFK is going to have enough appeal. He has enough radical support that he's kind of like a Bernie Sanders type character that is, if he actually runs as a third party, who he throws his support behind is going to make a really big difference. If he actually runs, he's definitely going to draw support. And there's an argument to be made for him drawing support from either side. But I have sensed all along that he would overwhelmingly be drawing from Trump if he runs, which has made it seem very clear that this is a way of running this campaign like this is a way of getting RFK into Trump's cabinet. So his VP, who is like a California lib, very, very much a lib, very wealthy. She brought a lot of money to the table, which is, I think, why she wound up being the VP. It's interesting seeing what has happened to her now after going through this process with respect to the DNC. This is something that has genuinely impacted her.
I did not put in tens of millions of dollars to be a spoiler candidate. I put in tens of millions of dollars to win, to fix this country, to do the right thing. I will say that Clear Choice, this PAC, this DNC aligned PAC that was created specifically to take us out, has spent millions of dollars to take us out. They have unfortunately turned us into a spoiler. And we don't want to be a spoiler. We wanted to win. We wanted a fair shot. The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us. I mean, the extent by which the sabotage they've unleashed upon us, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways that they have sabotaged us. I really wanted a fair shot at this election, and I believed in the America that a little girl, pledged an allegiance to. And that is not where we are today. And it's not because of the Republican Party taking us out. It is exclusively because of the Democratic Party taking us out. And I am so disappointed I ever helped them. I am so disappointed that I helped Chuck Schumer in that Georgia runoff secure a majority. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life. And it's really devastating. So to answer your question, we are not spoilers. That was never our motivation. We really wanted a fair shot. I think had we had a fair shot, we would have won. I still would love to see in the last 80 days of this election some miracle play out where we get a chance to debate. I don't think they're going to let us. You know, given this, I think we are taking a very serious look at making sure that the people that have corrupted our fair and free democracy do not end up in office in November. It's hard. I mean, it's really hard, Tom, to say these words because it's also acknowledging how bad things are.
Yeah, it's hard to hear the words. Do you guys see any path to victory at this point?
I mean, technically.
As Kate points out, she's the ex-wife of Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders of Google. So she's been coming from just about as deep behind enemy lines as you can possibly get. And she is getting broadsided with a 2x4 of reality.
Tom Billieu is such a goofy looking dude.
He's just sitting there like emotionless.
The big giant ears.
Yeah. His audience, he's got a pretty large audience, and it's very normie.
Yeah.
It's like normie, millennial, Gen X, professional, like white collar, probably with some blue collar, business entrepreneur. It's a very normie audience. So there's someone who would potentially have been genuinely interested in RFK because they're kind of coming without a lot of political preconceptions, apart from there's nothing that they hold passionately except for like they want everyone to be nice to each other and just get along and, you know, be able to have some innovation, but also make sure there's a social safety net for people. And you know, we shouldn't be racist, but it's really concerning that some of these people are being tagged as racist when it seems like if you really listen to what they said, I don't think that they're actually racist. You know, this is the kind of audience that is being touched by this conversation.
Matt, did you know that the Democrats are the real racists?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they were the ones that owned slaves, weren't they?
Yeah.
Man, and we got tricked. The party switched.
Yeah.
The media lied to us again.
If we can stay on the ballots, you know, we've qualified for all the ballots now, which is like an enormous feat. Like you don't understand. The system was designed to, after Ross Perot, to keep this from ever happening again, and we accomplished it. So technically, we could win. We could absolutely win still. The problem is if you censor a candidate as we've been censored, people don't get a chance to even hear us. So, you know, there's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying.
People don't even get a chance to hear us. Like, she thinks that if people hear us, that's what makes the difference. That it's listening to RFK talk that's going to make the difference.
I hate his voice.
I could have told you when I was 15, I could have told you immediately. If you said, hey, this guy's going to run for president, I would have been like, he's going to lose. There's no way that he's going to give a speech. He could give the most rousing, moving, profound speech of all time. And if it's nobody's going to follow that. It's too much for people.
It would be kind of cool to have a president who's on steroids.
It would, yeah. If he went up and did the Vivek thing where he like challenged him to a push-up contest and he dropped and just pumped out like 25 push-ups. I don't know if he could do that, but if he did, then that would be a pretty powerful scene.
I would guess he could probably do like 60.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's hard for me to say with a guy his age, you know, like I don't know what, I don't know how to accommodate for that. Okay. We'll continue with this. So she says they're looking at two options here.
Two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Walt's presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or
we draw somehow more votes from Trump. She's like, she can't believe that she's finding herself in a foxhole with Trump. She's like, no, you're the enemy. Like you're you're literally Hitler. Lordly Hitler. How did I possibly wind up in a foxhole with you? So it's fascinating seeing that she agreed to be a VP for this and went in there with all these rose-colored glasses, sitting here thinking, oh, we might have a chance. We just have to be able to get on the ballot, and I've got the money. I'll bring the money, and I'm going to put it into something I really believe in, and she's been just absolutely dump trucked.
And even right now, she's still like, technically, we could win. I don't think she believes that, but no one else believes that.
Right.
You're not going to win.
Both of them just
even
look
if
miserable.
You did, even if you did get on the stage and debated, you're not winning. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It was a fool's errand. You just dumped tens of millions of dollars into like the trash.
Yeah. You just put it in an oil barrel and lit it on fire.
Yeah. That's the price of her getting red pilled is tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it's so like he doesn't look happy about it either. And
Look at him.
And it's interesting that she makes the point that with this really easy Tristan with this really it's interesting that she notes the fact that it's not just, oh man, it sucks that we lost out on this or whatever, but this shows just how bad things are right now. She's like, she's really excuse me. She's speed ran the black pill circuit. And she's trying not to, you can see she's getting emotional. Like she's like, oh no, like somehow we're at the point where me, very normal and ordinary and decent mainstream American me is equally attractive as Trump, or is like we have something in common. How did I possibly wind up here?
We walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and you know, we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Honestly, knowing that she's coming from that perspective, it's pretty ballsy saying that. Like to say what we're thinking about is throwing our support behind Trump and having to explain to our voters, who she clearly doesn't think are going to be happy with that, having to explain to them why we're throwing our support with Trump. She actually is saying that in public like this. This is the first time that any of their campaign has actually, mentioned anything along those lines. So that shows just how personally affected she's been, because she's so much of a natural lib.
Man, I don't know how to like put myself in the shoes of the kind of person, the normie, who is actually bought into the possibility. Like, who is her base? Who is that person? You know? Who thinks this is actually legit? Like I hear like Brett Weinstein and these people who are like ostensibly smart people, and they're like, you know what we should do? We should throw our support behind Bobby Kennedy. What are you talking about? Someone who, especially all the shit that happened over the course of like COVID and the way he got just like railroaded over and over, you would think like, I don't know, he'd woken up a little bit more than, we just have to go right in Bobby Kennedy's name. And if enough of us do that, this country will be on the right track.
Yeah, right.
What are you talking about, dude?
It wasn't in this clip, but in another one of the clips from the same conversation, she said something about like, if we get 5% of the vote, then we can officially be a third party. We can get federal funding, and that means we don't have to put all these tens of millions of dollars that I just flushed away. I wouldn't have had to put that. I wouldn't have had to flush that away on ballot access. I would have been able to spend that on campaigning. And if we would have just been able to campaign she's I'd say right now she's probably a libertarian. She's basically at the big L libertarian stage. And she got snapped there from ex-wife of Google CEO to there over the course of like a year.
It would be really funny if they successfully pulled off like a third party and just, like got ballot access and all that, and you officially have like a new third party, and the libertarians could just get mogged.
All of the libertarian votes all went to Bobby Kennedy, and the libertarians are standing there holding their bag.
They're sitting there arguing over a $50 budget, Bunch of losers.
It's funny that you say like, who are these people? Like, who are these people? Like the Brett Weinsteins of the world, and they're probably a large chunk of the American population. Like, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 50% of the American population probably thinks like that, which is kind of insane to think about.
We're doomed.
Yeah. It also means that they're that easy to grab. Like, things have to get bad enough for them to pull their head out of their ass. But then they're like dumb mules that you could just kind of like just lead them around and you just have to get their attention, and it's very difficult to get their attention. So right after that happened yesterday, we get a little bit of breaking news here from old Uncle Alex. We got a longer clip here. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I listened to the first couple minutes and it was good. So we'll go on for as long as it seems necessary.
Meta said hi to me in the chat. Hi, Meta. Or what did he say? He said, "Oh, Coop is on today. Finally, someone interesting." That's right.
Yeah, I was personally offended, so I ignored his message. What's up, Meta? All right, let's listen to Alex.
I was able to confirm about an hour ago that RFK Jr. is going to be endorsing President Trump this Friday in Los Angeles.
Listen, look at him trying to read the teleprompter. He's like squinting, trying to see it. Oh, fucking lights are too bright in here.
Trump this Friday in Los Angeles.
I shouldn't have gotten LEDs.
You about what's happening now. InfoWars tells you the truth about what's happening next. Visit Infowars.com/show.
Do you think this is actually going to happen?
I've got major breaking exclusive news right now in the middle of the DNC on this Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 broadcast. It's been a huge viral story since midday when the vice president pick by RFK Jr., Nicole Sheehan, did a podcast.
Nicole Shanahan.
And said they were strongly considering
Cole Sheehan
joining the
Nicole. He said Nicole Sheehan, and it's Nicole Shanahan.
Oh, I heard Cole Sheehan.
I think he glottal stopped it, swallowing his tongue while he talks.
See, Alex Jones does this thing where he says like, I got the intel and I've got the documents and this is gonna happen, and then it doesn't happen, and no one ever goes like, dude, you were wrong a lot. Because he was right about like, I don't know, 10 things.
That's kind of what I think. It's probably what helps him maintain his status to whatever extent he does, where he's able to be as much of a performer as he is. Because if his record was too good, then people would take him a lot more seriously. So he kind of has to whiff on a bunch of stuff in order to keep up his bit.
He's just throwing slop at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right. He's like a digital tabloid, basically. And sometimes those tabloid stories were real. It actually was true. They were the only paper that cared enough to try to get a source and get it out.
Yeah, like Lindsay Lohan was giving her baby crack. You know?
Right.
I love those things. The Globe or whatever they're called. You know?
I remember when. Do you remember the time before they started putting the really smutty ones? They'd put them behind covers, so you could see the top of it and see what magazine it was, but you couldn't see the cover at all.
Yes.
I remember that was like a big campaign. It was sort of like along the lines of like Mad and Dare and. You know, the moral majority thing, like, oh, the kids are going to see the tabloids. We got to put them behind things. And I was like, no, man, don't do that. It's like the only interesting thing about going to the store.
Yeah, right. I have to go walk around with my mom for 2 hours while she reads every label on the shelf. Yeah. And this is like the one thing that, like, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing the hot chicks. There was a freaking little thrift store, convenience store in the little town I grew up in that was run by this, like, Pakistani dude or something like that. And it was the only store for like 20 minutes in any direction. So he had just like every vice you could think of. He had like, you know, all the booze, cigarette, whatever you could get your hands on. He had it. And he would have like the smut magazines just right there by the door where you walked in, literally right next to the slushie machine where the kids would go get their slushies. And you'd look over and you'd see a magazine called like Cream Pie or something like that. He didn't cover anything at all.
Oh, can you imagine today? This isn't that long ago either.
I hope Jim's doing all right. He's a good guy.
His name was Jim?
Yeah.
A Pakistani guy named Jim?
That's probably not his real name.
It's like Jim Pakarama or something.
Yeah. Jim Pajit.
The Trump campaign so that the globalists, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz do not get in there. I shot a report about it a few hours ago, and then I started reaching out to some of my contacts, and I was able to confirm about an hour ago that RFK Jr. is going to be endorsing President Trump this Friday in Los Angeles. And I was given other details, but I'm not going to give those out about how they're going to do it at this point. This is from inside the RFK Jr. campaign from a very, very trusted source. And it turns out that when I started reaching out to people, they reached out to some of their contacts, and then I was called back from someone inside of their operation who'd already seen the X post we did about 2 hours ago at Real Alex Jones, where I surmised the fact that RFK Jr. saw his father murdered, means the Attorney General saw his uncle, the president, murdered, and that he saw them attempt to kill Trump, and that he knows the same Secret Service that's been trying to get him killed has not given him any Secret Service protection, and that I believe that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I also had sources very close to his campaign, high up, that had told me that he had been gunning for the head of the EPA or the head of the NIH or even the Attorney General slot that his father, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., had. And again, I've talked to several sources, but that definitely has resonated with folks. So I can, again, announce to you here, and I'll talk about some of the issues involved and why this is so important and so big, that RFK Jr. is set Friday to announce in Los Angeles that he is dropping out of the 2024 race and endorsing Donald John Trump, the 45th and really the 46th, but they stole it, and soon to be the 47th president of the United States. Now, RFK Jr. has also really been upset by being taken off the ballot of his home state for most of his life, New York City, and the fact that the corporate media and the Democrats didn't just refuse him Secret Service protection, but that they also, again, did things like pull him off the ballot when he was legally and lawfully on it, saying he didn't even live in the state, even though he's domiciled there. So the Democrats arrogantly, totally screwed him and screwed all of his supporters. Depending on the poll, he has 6 to 10 to 12 points of people that are saying they're going to vote. He's not like the Libertarian Party or some little party. He has real support. So you add Trump being 20 points ahead in national polls, real polls, 10, 15 points ahead in battleground states, despite all the spin polls that are trying to gaslight people, adding even 5, 6 points on the low end, 10, 12 points on the high end, absolutely is the ultimate game changer and is so important and is such amazingly positive and exciting news for the world. Now,
it's funny how when he says something is like amazingly positive and exciting news for the world, it's like someone's having to drag it out of him with a rope. It's like he's trying to get the words out. He's so used to his character is so relentlessly about our fucking sky is falling. And I say this with great love and affection. That he's like, it's really good news. How do I say this is really good news?
Trump was interviewed just a few hours ago and asked about this and asked, does he like RFK Jr. and would he consider him in a cabinet position or a major position? He said absolutely that he would. Of course, Trump keeps his cards very, very close to the vest. I'll leave it at.
What was that?
I said, imagine Alex Jones on steroids.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he's done them. Have I ever told you about my the weird Alex Jones and Jay Dyer, like how much they look alike and how similar their communication styles are? Yeah. They're like it was. So one of the for the audience, one of the guilty pleasures of mine is this channel called Objective Personality that deals with like the Jungian cognitive function stuff, and they've got a really interesting system that is has some very interesting insights within it. It's kind of like as MBTI is to this stuff is kind of like as horoscopes are to astrology. So the MBTI and the horoscopes are like the watered down sort of commercialized version of something that's actually there's definitely something to it. And one thing that's been funny as I've been watching them, they are absolute shit libs. They're the type of people who would 100% be like, oh yeah, RFK, great outsider, third party guy, he's a Kennedy, they're the ones who would buy into that. They've been categorizing, they're very data driven, so they've been logging all of these different people that they've done interviews with and evaluated their communication and speaking style, and they've been finding really distinct physiognomic overlaps. So we've been joking about how they're basically backing their way into race realism by studying human communication and cognition patterns. So one of the ones that I realized was if you look at pictures of young Jay Dyer and young Alex Jones, they're very, very similar. They look very similar. And when I started like breaking down and analyzing their communication style and how they tend to look at ideas and conceive of the kind of extroverted, introverted spectrum, I realized I think they're the same type. So there's a physiognomic similarity there that goes along with their communication styles too. I think I definitely do not want RFK as the head of EPA, but I think FDA would be. I would love that. FDA would be great. So would I'd be cool with Attorney General too. I think both of those would be pretty good positions for him, and I think that it is that Alex Jones is right that having RFK endorse Trump is very big from an electoral standpoint.
That. and that video is also posted on my X account. We're doing this live right now on air, but I'm going to take this in a few minutes, add the Trump clip onto the end as well, so you can see that for yourself. Now, RFK Jr. may decide, for whatever reason, because I put this out, probably not, but or maybe logistics, they may change it to Thursday, they may change it to Saturday, it may be next Monday, but they have decided on Friday, and the people are there, and the people are being assembled, and it's the presentation is being prepared, the event is being prepared for him to make this announcement, and then a full-throated endorsement of President Trump and the peril this nation is in. I think it would make a great attorney general. I think that's really the smartest move. It would also be great assassination insurance for Trump because the globalists really hate RFK Jr. as well. I think Tulsi Gabbard, and this is being discussed and looks like it'll happen, will also have a major position in the Trump administration. Look for that to be.
I'd heard that privately as well, that Tulsi she was never in contention for VP, but she's been a strong consideration for a cabinet position. I heard that several months ago.
Be announced, I would imagine, in the next 2 weeks. So these are real classical liberals. These are what the old Democrats were before they became pure evil. And they have really woken up to the spiritual battle we're in. And this is extremely exciting. So thank God. And this is just great news. But bottom line, RFK Jr. is endorsing Trump. This is an exclusive here. And it's people like Stephen Colbert attacking him and laughing and celebrating and saying how great it is that he's a bad person and thank God he's been taken off the ballot. It's the leering and the arrogance of these people. Now, depending on the expert and the actuaries, and we've interviewed Professor Epstein and so many others that are top experts, there's between 6 to 12 points, just like with RFK Jr., it's a similar number, that dead people voting and people out of district voting in that database that Zuckerberg created and that they've updated to then stuff ballot boxes and stuff drop boxes is the big margin of fraud they have. They have other scams like ballots that are too short in conservative districts in Houston, Texas, and in Phoenix, Arizona. People have been indicted over that now in Houston last week. I mean, this is all coming out. They have a lot of tactics they use. They do wire in and hack into some machines as well, but they've been caught so much at that's being watched. So they're going to try to steal it. But if Trump's already ahead and then RFK Jr. goes on the campaign trail with him and campaigns separately, this is a big game changer. So thank God, thank your lucky stars. This is a real ray of sunshine in this incredibly dangerous time with the left trying to start World War III. The New York Times is now reporting that Biden put all the nuclear forces on alert and ordered them to be ready to nuke China, Russia, and North Korea in March and going forward. That could be their October surprise. These people are crazed, clown show, demonic maniacs, and we need Donald Trump. We need RFK Jr. We need all these great people that Trump is surrounding him with and to unify America. It's not about left and right, it's about right and wrong, and it's about saving our republic and stopping World War III and securing our border and stopping the inflation and stopping the fentanyl and all the rest of it. So here is the exclusive breaking. And again, it's my job as a newsman to bring you this information. And also when this gets tens of millions of views, people can also get the other backstory and the data that's going to be very, very important to have massive focus on what's coming Friday at the big announcement that RFK Jr. is set to make.
Can I ask you about RFK?
Tulsi, my guess is that Tulsi's probably going to wind up being something like an assistant secretary of state or something. I don't know that I don't know that they would necessarily make her a head of an agency. And I don't necessarily know that I would make her a head of an agency as well. But I think she's probably going to wind up in the State Department somewhere.
Because just moments ago, his running mate said that they were considering endorsing you. Have you considered him for a role in the administration, and what role would that be?
Well, we haven't, but I would love that endorsement because I've always liked him.
Would you also consider putting him in the administration?
You're asking me a very unusual question. I haven't been asked that question yet. I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. I probably would if something like that would happen.
This is an emergency transmission from deep in the heart of Texas. U.S. resistance against a global corporate combine empowered and funded by Communist China, allied with big mega banks that set up Communist China in 1949. The Communist Chinese have taken control of U.S. telecommunications infrastructure. The Communist Chinese have taken control of Hollywood. The Communist Chinese have taken control of the main universities. This is all confirmed. This is not the drill. Big tech in Silicon Valley is almost completely run by the Communist Chinese government. They officially become state-run. Apple 100%. Google is now making the transition and announcing a merger and total worldwide censorship. They are now beta testing using me as the straw man, a demonized version of Alex Jones to do that. This is happening. This is not like the other probes before that were meant to get you used to probes and censorship, thinking you would adapt to censorship by just putting up with it. Now this attack is thousands and thousands and thousands of times the magnitude of all previous attacks. This is a titrated dose, reverse psychological warfare operation using adapt and overcome, subversion, paradigm manipulation. In layman's terms, they are manipulating.
Oh, he's so much fun.
We adapt to being oppressed.
He's like the original schizo shitposter.
He's so much fun.
Yeah. It's funny thinking too that so I obviously I know there's a lot of people in our circles that get all wrapped around the axle about the fact that he goes so hard on China and conspicuously doesn't go hard on another nation. But what actually is, if you're concerned about Alex Jones's well-being, I think he's going to be fine, because him going hard on China like this is really, really preaching to the tech boy choir. They are this is going to resonate with them, like the Pirate Wires All In podcast, like that world. Alex Jones is going to be much more normalized and mainstreamed. He's going to be more, assuming the what I believe is the likely outcome, and He's going to be rehabilitated. I think that Alex Jones's reputation is going to be much better in the long run than it was as it was happening. And in retrospect, I think it's going to be much better. There was another thought that I had too about the same thing goes for with the Gray Tribe, the Pirate Wires type of PayPal Mafia, Silicon Valley culture. They're also very sympathetic to RFK, partly because they're ultimately kind of upper class libs in sentiment, and he's a Kennedy, so they have a natural affection for him, and then a lot of them are very health conscious. They're very concerned about things like the EPA and the FDA and abuse that they see there. And so him being very outspoken in that way speaks to them as well. So this is this sort of move, if this happens, and I think it was probably inevitable that it was going to happen at some point because it's so easy to make it happen. Trump wants to make him part of his cabinet, and RFK would happily take that. So it just seems like a match made in heaven. And this is continuing to shore up this new technocrat coalition as part, or technocrat cabal as part of the Trump coalition.
Low dosages of oppression. Now when the megaton hits us of the total takeover, we try to adapt to the poison infusion instead of not knowing it's a lethal dose if we accept the dose. Total Internet of Things, integration, global social score, complete command and control system. It is the virtual reality AI weapon system now attacking the United States with traitors inside the major security agencies, blocking Trump's resistance of the program and attempting to stop us from removing the tentacles of the Chi-Com/Big Tech Banking Combine emergency situation. I have been chosen for destruction because I brought you this information and have been battering, ramming it out as much as I can.
There's Jay Dyer right there.
I have been chosen for destruction because I brought you this information and have been battering, ramming it out as much as I can. They want to double use me as they always do in any complex system of mathematical deception. Every angle of my good is turned against it. So they take what I've said, being sincere, build me into an insincere person in the straw man. I'm a person that cares about life and children and is against these wars. And so they make me a herder of children. And then they build me into this lie to then set the distraction while they're actually censoring all of you to make a debate about Alex Jones. So even if I didn't sell out to them, they now use me as an archetype to serve them by being the main distraction. I have now been captured by the enemy in the information warfare fulcrum and is being used against you. Only your full understanding of this key will break you free from this paradigm. I have given you the transmission. Now break free.
Production is so good.
Altar of God, eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Thomas Jefferson. If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Many years ago, I coined the three.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking, Cooper?
Oh yeah. Production is so good, man.
Oh yeah.
Dr. Jones Naturals. Oh, it's the Alex Jones boner pills.
Yes. Oh man, we're getting so much inspiration.
60 win. That's another way of saying it's a non-zero sum game. When you have a sum game, it's a pizza, there's only so many pieces, it doesn't get bigger. But if something is symbiotic, if something empowers everybody involved with it, it is a 360 win. When you visit drjonesnaturals.com, you're not just supporting our broadcast by getting the products, you're getting game-changing products that really, really work and are amazing. All of the nano silver products, incredible products like Next Level Financial Energy, products like Top Brain, incredible Nootropic, Rocket Rest, an incredible natural sleep aid, and dozens of other products not available at InfoWarsStore.com or exclusively available at drjonesnaturals.com, and they keep the show on the air, and they're amazing, a 360 win. So please follow the links below to drjonesnaturals.com, and I thank you for your support. And for breaking news and updates, be sure and follow me at Real Alex Jones here on X.
Does he still offer the super male vitality? I got to get me some of that.
I don't know. Andrew would know. I think it's funny that it's what was it? Dr. Jones, drjonesnaturals.com. It's funny that it's not Dr. Jones Naturals. I wonder if he can't say Dr. Jones, or if he's specifying that it's DR. Is there him not being a doctor? I wonder if he would be allowed to say Dr.
Or is
Jones.
he partnered with a guy who is a doctor that's last name is Jones?
Yeah, actually that would be the clever way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Just find some guy who's a doctor and be like, hey, can I pay you $1 million a year to use your name? So the election happened and Trump won. Elon Musk posted this yesterday. Let me refresh the page. So it says 5.4 million right now. It was already refreshed. Okay, so 5.4 million votes. He says, a lot of people have asked, here goes a super unscientific poll. Who will you vote for? So 5.4, I don't know if I've seen this many votes on a Twitter poll. Obviously, having Elon push it out, 60 million views. I do think it's funny that means 56 million people didn't weigh in. There's this is a great microcosm of the American population, the American actual political votes. But Trump is 73.5 to Kamala's 26.5. So this tells you, no matter what, this tells you something about Twitter and the audience of people who are seeing Elon's polls. Because there's a whole bunch of shit libs that are following him. They would be more than happy to try to max this poll out and demoralize their opposition. And this completely overcame even that. So Trump went to Michigan, and apparently he was in this town that was like, had something to do with the KKK or something like that.
What town? Oh, Howell? Yeah. They make a big deal out of that. See, that's okay. Howell, Michigan's probably half an hour from me, 45 minutes.
Okay. Trump was in your backyard.
Yeah. There's one guy, I don't even know if he's still alive, but there was, for the longest time, there was one guy who lived there who was like a Grand Dragon in the KKK. There was one guy, and nobody liked him, and he didn't have any power or influence or whatever. There's just one dude who lived there who happened to be a Grand Dragon like 30 years ago.
Huh.
And this is what the media always does whenever anyone goes to Howell or Howell is brought up. They're like, oh, you went to the KKK place. And it's like one dude.
Imagine the people who live in Howell. From Howell, Michigan, and you apply for a job at like CNN. Hey, I've heard of that place. Look at Trump's reply. She says something about your campaign and being attacked for being in this town, or there's a white supremacist or something. You can't completely hear, but that's the gist of the question.
Who was here in 2021? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Nice.
Uh-huh. I loved his. I think he didn't expect to get the immediate response like that. That little haha was pretty sincere, because he was expecting her to hem and haw and not want to give him the answer, and she just said it. We've been tracking the story, the meta story with the polls here. Democrat mail-in ballot request on this date in 2020 versus 2024. So in Philadelphia, there was, on this date in 2020, there was almost 130,000 mail-in ballots requested. That this date now, there's just under 93,000. So there's been an almost 29% reduction in mail-in ballots requested. In Pittsburgh, it's been a 17% reduction. He says it'll be interesting to see if this continues, but this is a significant drop so far.
Yeah, that's big.
And this guy says it's actually weird that even though it's not COVID era, the drop is only about 30%. And he said it still reduces their ability to ballot harvest, at least it's by request. And I think probably what this is indicative of is low voter sentiment. I think they're very demoralized, and I think likely the biggest issue the fortificationists are going to have is overcoming really low turnout. A related story here: Tucker Carlson exposes U.S. Congress passed a loophole to allow illegal migrants to vote. We're hoping that this will be allowed on Twitter, or sorry, on YouTube. But if it isn't, you'll know why.
And it's happening for political reasons. It's happening because the Democratic Party has ceased making the case for itself to Americans. And so in order to keep power, in fact, to expand their power and to preside over the one-party state that they desire, they're going to need a brand new electorate. And this is their electorate. Foreigners will choose your leaders. You're not allowed to choose the leaders of foreign countries, but foreigners will choose your leaders, including in this election, this 2024 presidential election. Well, how would that work? It's illegal, you say, for illegal aliens to vote in a federal election. Well, actually, it's not illegal, it turns out. Congress passed something in the U.S. code, the federal code, a line that, unbeknownst to the rest of us, makes it legal for illegal aliens to vote in federal elections if they believe they are citizens. It's a state of mind. Did you know that? We didn't know that. Most people didn't know that. Catherine Engelbrecht just found this provision in the U.S. code. That's the kind of thing she reads because she's the founder of True the Vote and has been working on these issues for a few years now. And she joins us to explain what she's found. Catherine Engelbrecht, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So would you mind explaining what seems at first blush a very far-fetched idea that the U.S. code, as of right now, as of our speaking, would allow illegal aliens to vote in the upcoming presidential election? How would that work?
Yeah, well, True the Vote, the organization I founded some years ago, has been long involved in looking at the accuracy of the voter rolls. And we've long maintained that inaccurate voter rolls lead to inaccurate elections. So with that as a backdrop, we've been very concerned about the lack of availability to determine citizenship status, not just by groups like ours, but by states themselves. They can't get close enough to a citizenship status database to make good determinations. that then led me to look a little deeper because, as you rightly lay out, there's a motivation here. So what might that be? We've seen many, many videos of people coming across the border who are talking about their excitement about voting for Joe Biden and claiming that they are citizens. But yet, we hear debates in Congress where the congressman will say, don't worry, non-citizens can't vote. It's a crime of perjury. It's a felony. So, okay, we took a deep look at the criminal code, and Title 18 left us just gobsmacked, because when you read all the way through it, as it lists all of the stipulations against non-citizen voting in federal elections and lays out the penalties therefore, scroll all the way down to the fine print, and what you read is that non-citizens can vote without penalty if at the time they are voting, they believe themselves to be U.S. citizens.
Well, I mean, that seems insane. I mean, I'm taking your word for it. I'm not a lawyer or an expert in the federal code. But is there any other crime? Like, if I can show that I didn't know I was robbing a liquor store, I had a gun in my hand, I was demanding money, but I didn't really think it was robbery, does that shield me from being prosecuted for robbing a liquor store?
No, certainly not. But I will say that this state of mind idea is something that we've come up against in the past related to domicile. As we've done reviews of the voter rolls, and you see people that are registered, but they're registered to vacant lots, they're registered to fast food restaurants, and the press you get back from the state as well. But, residency is a state of mind. This takes that to an entirely different level. And I'll tell you what I'm really concerned about, Tucker, is that when we lived through 2020 and we saw the landscape change, lawlessness take hold, we watched on the sidelines and said, surely this can't be what it looks like is happening. Surely this move to the mass mail of ballots and unmonitored drop boxes and third-party election workers that have no proper training to support all of the ebbs and flows of process, surely this can't be what's about to play out. And then when it did, you're left with scant few days to try to pick up the pieces and prove what really happened. I'm seeing this now play out in 2024 on this issue, much the same. And so it's my hope that we can awaken Americans to this problem and demand accountability before November so that we can decide if citizenship is truly a state of mind.
So can I just ask about the law itself, the code that you're referring to? Do you think that suggests that the foreigner, because the proposition here is that we're allowing foreigners to choose our leaders, which is insane, of course. But is the law written in such a way that that foreigner will not be punished for voting in our elections, but will that vote still count? Is that clear?
Well, it's a great question, but the ballots are anonymous. So once that ballot has been cast, either by mail and it's been separated from the envelope with which it's carried to the central count, so you can't tell who voted if that's been separated, the envelope from the ballot, and certainly by machine, you can't tell. So no, there's no way to pull this back. It's why it is critical that we get on the front side of this and have a very national discussion.
So there's no punishment for doing it. Like they say, it won't be punished, and also like it wouldn't be possible to punish it. There's like she's detailing here how you would never know.
So if that's the case, if you wouldn't be punished for doing this, then assuming you can't get this stopped before November, what's stopping the Republicans from doing it?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Because I don't know anything, but I've suspected this for a while. I've had this same thought occur to me. There's been some funny quotes I've heard from a few people, just kind of implying that they're very well aware of the potential problems, and I don't know. That'd be a massive gambit. That would be a laying your balls on the table kind of a move. But just a matter of willpower and financing.
About the tracks we're heading down. This is a very, very...
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. The internet is crowded with interesting things that don't really matter. On TCN, we attempt to bring you interesting things that actually do matter, and a lot of them. Interviews, long form and short, videos, documentaries. You can find all of it on tuckercarlson.com, and we hope you will.
One of my favorite things about Tucker is how good a friend he is with Alex Jones and how much respect he has for him. All right. A couple more stories here. It looks like Andrew in the chat is saying that RFK just dropped out. So Alex Jones has been at least partially validated. We'll wait and see if he throws his support behind Trump or not. I imagine it's a foregone conclusion, especially if he's doing it now, right after she went and said that on that interview. Okay, first of all, we got a thread here with some really cool old pictures of the United States, and then an update and some legal analysis on Trump's trial and the potential upcoming sentencing, and then it got some good motivating thoughts from Andrew Torba. So Jack Posobiec says a Chicago lawyer recently passed away, and in his belongings, photos of his trip across Route 66 in the 1950s were found. These are pictures of daily American life in the 1950s. Here's the average drugstore.
I like that.
Uh-huh. It makes me feel happy thoughts. Route 66 ran from Chicago, Illinois to Santa Monica, California, running through Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Here's a beauty salon. It's weird seeing everything be so used, but like used in a good way.
You sure that's not just texturing?
I mean, it all looks like sturdy and it's not like it's not IKEA furniture.
Yeah.
It's not like breaking down from use. It could just be texturing, but I'd imagine it's, there's a few things here that make it look like it's definitely been well used. A local bar. Kind of wild to imagine living in this time. Like coming in and sitting down at the bar and getting a drink and sitting here and shooting the shit. There's no TV. You just sit there and talk with people. Here is Corpus Christi in 1950. I wonder if is that a mirror? Is this a selfie? He's taking a picture of them in a mirror. Interesting sunglasses here. Those look very modern. Busy barbershop.
Man, look at the ceiling.
Really ornate.
Yeah, there is in my town, there's one restaurant that is like that. It's an old restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and you go in and all of the ceilings are really high and they're all carved like that, and it's really cool.
It's like we used to care about the things we built.
Yeah, like, hey, making things beautiful was a worthwhile endeavor.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, the demographic of barbers. Like middle-aged men. A workshop. Customers at the drugstore.
I want this. I want to bring this back, please. Walgreens is stupid.
This wouldn't be that hard either. Like if you just built up your own city from scratch, just get a whole bunch of people all to move to one area and just start building a city. Or maybe I should say building a town. I like the baby strollers up here, the prams.
Mm-hmm.
Young kids. I can't tell how old she is, but he looks pretty young. Running the family store, maybe. Mechanics at an auto shop. A clothing store. So this kid here is, if this is like 1950, then this kid here would have been born in like the mid to late 30s. Would have lived through World War II. And if he's still alive today, he's going to be in like pushing 90. They're probably all dead. Classic diner. Another
Take me
diner
back.
photo.
I want to go.
It's interesting they're wearing their hats inside. No checks cashed. 5 cents and 10 cents. Man. This is what life was like for the average American in the 1950s.
Yeah, imagine a gallon of gas being less than a quarter.
Yeah. This life will return. We will rebuild. All right, so prosecutors, hold on just a sec here. Whoops. Prosecutors caved on Trump's request in New York, agreeing to defer to the court as to whether a continuance of the upcoming sentencing date is warranted. This is a long video here, but he covers a lot of ground, and I got through most of it and found it all very good. So we're going to listen to the whole thing. So let us screen share. All right.
The people defer to the court on the appropriate post-trial schedule that allows for adequate time to adjudicate Trump's motion while also pronouncing sentence, quote, without unreasonable delay. Now, the people, says the Bragg prosecutors, are also mindful that significant public safety and logistical steps by multiple agencies are necessary to prepare for court appearances in this matter. Oh, okay. So they just don't want to overburden the staff.
They say Trump could go to an appellate court and upend preparations for the sentencing, which are likely to be costly and complicated. And given that, they're throwing it back to Judge Rashan and saying, whatever you decide, Judge, we'll be ready.
Pathetic. Alvin Bragg and government prosecutors look like they're caving on the Trump sentencing. This is a letter that comes from Alvin Bragg's office. Of course, he's prosecuting the case against Trump out of New York. The judge there is Honorable Judge Juan Merchan. And this got sent to his office. So from Bragg, not really Bragg, we know who actually is doing the heavy lifting there, is not Alvin Bragg. It's this guy, Matthew Colangelo. Matthew Colangelo, Biden's number 3 at the DOJ before he resigned and went over here to prosecute Trump because he was the guy who was basically setting up Trump prosecution franchises all around the country. Went over to Tisch, worked with him, her, worked with Bragg, different office, same state, probably worked with many other prosecutors in speculation only in the Georgia case and in Florida, but didn't actually go and physically, handle those cases, but was the 3rd at the DOJ. You know who did handle those cases? Jack Smith, Jay Bratt, the rest of them, Molly Gaston. You think they didn't know each other? Come on. All right, so Matthew Colangelo is the person who is drafting this, and there is a big just backpedal on this, and it's outstanding to see. It looks like the sentencing is not going to happen, but let's see what the judge does with it. He could always dig in. So here is from the prosecutor to the judge. It says, Your Honor, this letter addresses Trump's prior letter that we read here that requests an adjournment of the sentencing date, which is coming up mid-September. So a postponement, a continuance, or a total adjournment, right? Get rid of it. We don't need it because we have to have another evidentiary hearing to discuss the immunity issues. The people defer to the court on the appropriate post-trial schedule that allows for adequate time to adjudicate Trump's motion while also pronouncing sentence, quote, without unreasonable delay. Defer to the court. That probably hurt for them to have to type that. Because what you want to do is oppose. The people oppose Trump's motion. He's wrong, clearly. Sentencing should happen on this day. But they note the following points with this court. They say Trump's letter indicates, for the first time, his intent to seek interlocutory state or federal appellate review before he is sentenced of any adverse ruling. And it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? What did you think was going to happen? That he would just lose and not appeal it? Well, this is the first time we heard that Trump could appeal this. We had no idea. Have you ever prosecuted a case before? Well, do you know what an appellate court is? Because that's what happens when people lose, especially on an immunity issue. And by the way, you should have had notice about this because they did the exact same thing in the January 6th case. We had no idea that this was going to be appealed. He just told us. Now, it's correct, they say, that the denial of immunity from prosecution is immediately appealable, like we saw with Judge Chutkan's case. So they agree Trump was right again on that one. But here, in contrast to Trump's case in Washington with Judge Chutkan, the J6 case, the question of Trump's immunity from prosecution is not presented, okay? It's been presented this entire case. It was presented before the trial started, and it was presented multiple times in the middle of the trial. The judge even said, stop raising that objection. You don't need to raise it every time. The only question now before the court is whether a small subset of the trial evidence was improperly admitted in light of a brand new evidentiary rule that derives from official acts immunity. So this is the prosecutor right here throwing a temper tantrum. We had no idea. This just came out of nowhere. So they say, and if so, whether there's any error in admitting official acts evidence was harmless. So they're going to say that even if we put immune material in there, immune evidence, immune testimony, Hope Hicks, anybody else, the judge could also find it's harmless. So it doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. It didn't matter. It didn't prejudice Trump in some way. Now, and the court didn't say that, okay? The Supreme Court didn't come out and say, well, you can include it unless it's harmless. Like, that's not even in the Supreme Court decision at all. Now, as the people noted, the prosecutors are saying, as we noted in our opposition to Trump's immunity motion, they say the evidence that he claims is affected by SCOTUS is only a sliver of the mountains of testimony. Well, only a sliver of it was, okay, maybe a problem, and the documentary proof that the jury considered. They had whole mountains of other evidence. And so we don't actually need to even consider these rules. Well, it's funny because the Supreme Court didn't say, well, it's okay if it's only a sliver. Then we'll accept it. It's not Judge Kagan saying, okay, only a sliver. No, that's not how that works. So it's total coat mode. This is pathetic. They probably feel pretty pathetic writing this, honestly. Matthew Colangelo, he's not a dumb guy. He's obviously orchestrated a bunch of different prosecutions. He's a corrupt guy. I would say an unethical person. But he is the individual who is failing so badly right now. I mean, you also got to just be totally embarrassed because your case is falling apart. Like, this was the last one. You're hanging everything on this. And he's having to sit here and just kind of make these sliver of mountain arguments. Wow. So we continue on. The Supreme Court's recent decision did not consider whether a trial court's ruling on the distinct evidentiary question is immediately appealable. Why wouldn't it be? And there are strong reasons why it should not be. Okay. Nonetheless, given Trump's newly stated position was an obvious follow-up to any denial of immunity. Clearly, it's not like I had no idea that they were going to run another play after that play. Well, have you ever watched this game before? We defer to the court on whether an adjournment is warranted to allow for the orderly appellate litigation of that question and to reduce the risk of a disruptive stay from an appellate court pending consideration of the question. And assuming that Trump seeks an interim stay of the sentencing immediately after the court's September 16th ruling. So remember, we got those 2 dates coming up. So 9/16 will be, it's like a status conference, right? They're going to come back and, well, what are we going to do about immunity? Then they came back on 9/18 and there were prognostications that for the sentencing date, that this would be when, right, Trump, if he sentences him to prison, he goes into custody that day. And generally speaking, if you're not the president, if you're not in the middle of an election, generally speaking, you're, everyday civilian citizen, you're sentenced to prison, you're going. So the status conference will be here. Let's say the judge comes out, right, and says, well, no, you're not immune. There's harmless error. I am as corrupt as everybody speculates, and I'm just going to totally ignore the Supreme Court or whatever. Then Trump would appeal that. So this would be up, stop. Now it's blocked. You go up to the next level court. This is state, okay, just by virtue of the operation of the law. And so the prosecutor was basically acknowledging that. He's like, look, this is going to happen, whether we want it or not. I know this is the rule. This is basically what happened with check-ins. Now, they tried to be pretty clever about this, scheduling these two things back to back. Trump obviously asked for an adjournment of this date. Just get rid of it because we're going to appeal it, obviously. Now, the people respectfully note that the appellate court, considering such a request, will understand that without an interim stay, it would have to receive briefing and decide certain issues of the first impression in one day, right? So now you're only going to give them the 17th to make a decision on this. So like, all right, we were trying to be cute, but we're kind of, limiting ourselves here. The people are prepared to appear for sentencing on any future date as the court sets. Now, the people, says the Bragg prosecutors, are also mindful that significant public safety and logistical steps by multiple agencies are necessary to prepare for court appearances in this matter. Oh, okay. So they just don't want to overburden the staff now. That's really nice of them to be so considerate of the staff. The defendant's newly stated position concerning an immediate appeal, like, what do you think he was going to do? Don't act so surprised. May mean that significant preparatory steps are taken only to have such steps disturbed by appellate litigation. So in other words, Trump will appeal it. It'll go right up here immediately. The appellate court will put a stay on the sentencing. Meanwhile, everybody's prepared to come in on the 19th. Like, oh man, we don't have to come in? No, it got moved. Oh. So none of the defendant's remaining arguments merit any consideration. We're not going to talk about them. First, although couched as a scheduling request, Trump re-raises for the fourth time a recusal grievance based on false claims. And this was great. Trump did do that, and it was really funny because he says, Judge, if you just get rid of the sentencing and allow us to come back here and actually have a fair case, we won't even worry about recusal anymore. So they kind of threw that in there as a jab. It's like, we know we keep hitting you with this. Like, you should recuse because you donated to Joe Biden. Should have recused because your daughter worked for Joe Biden. Now you should recuse because your daughter worked for Kamala Harris. Judge also made nasty statements about Trump to his daughter. She talked about that on a podcast. Like, the list goes on and on. So we'll stop telling you to leave if you just do the right thing on this case, right? And just move the sentencing based on false claims of a potential conflict that have already been rejected over and over by this court. He's like, Your Honor, you're amazing. You're so good. I'm sorry they're attacking you. The First Department and the Advisory Committee. Now, Trump's ostensibly new argument about the court's family members, co-workers' tweets is bizarre. And that dude did post a bunch of tweets. What's so bizarre about that? And nothing to do with the post-trial schedule. Well, Trump's concern about a public sentencing submission from the people is also misplaced. So the loser government is going to submit their pre-sentence memo, and I don't know if this is standard, where it would be sealed in New York. I don't know if that's standard in New York. The only way the memo would become public is if the court orders otherwise or the defendant unlawfully discloses it. Now, finally, defendant's apparent insinuation, Trump's insinuation that state prosecutors are incapable of applying federal constitutional law is fundamentally flawed, given that the people, the prosecutors, and this court protect and apply federal constitutional rights every day. Based on the foregoing, the people respectfully defer to the court on the appropriate post-trial schedule. Okay, he can't come out and say, I agree with Trump. I agree with the defense that this should be stayed or adjourned because our case is crap and we tried to rig it from the very beginning and we lost. We ran out of time because we tried to hurry, but we couldn't get it done before SCOTUS came back down. So they have to say we respectfully defer. Now, what does this mean? Okay, now we have, it's like the judge is supposed to be neutral. Okay, supposedly that is his posture. And he shouldn't have a position on whether this sentencing goes forward or not on this date in particular. What's his urgency? From a judge's perspective, is it judicial economy? Is his schedule so busy the following months? Can he not postpone this until after the election? What's his justification? Safety of everybody? No, you've got gag orders in place. Nobody's going to die any minute. So relax. Why don't you just postpone this? What's the urgency? What's the hurry? Now, the hurry ultimately here has been provided by the government, Matthew Colangelo and Alvin Bragg, racing this case to trial because they need Trump to be a convicted felon. I know they keep throwing that word around very loosely, but Trump, as we are seeing, is voting, right? He's not actually showing up on criminal records as a convicted felon, right? We're not seeing that anywhere because he's not a convicted felon for all intents and purposes. And what they're trying to do is get that done. But now they're going to defer. It's pathetic. They're losing. They know they're losing. Matthew Colangelo is just one total pathetic loser failure. And that's my technical opinion, so it's not name calling. But here is what MSNBC is saying about this. They posted about this after it happened. Let's see if they're upset.
From New York, where the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is responding to Donald Trump's efforts to delay sentencing in his New York hush money case, which right now is set for the 18th of September. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin is with us. Lisa, good morning. What did the Manhattan DA's office have to say?
Manhattan DA's office had to say a lot on one hand and not much of anything on the other.
Two questions. So who's this guy reviewing this? Is it some lawyer?
I don't know. It's Robert Gouveia Esquire.
Huh.
Someone retweeted him into my timeline and I started watching and I was like, man, I want this guy to be my lawyer.
Okay, and then second question, hush money, is that a reference to like Stormy Daniels?
I believe so, yeah.
We're still on this?
Is that, I'm trying to remember what this is. I don't even remember which
it's like
case
a decade later and we're still talking about this.
Yeah, right. I don't even remember what the substance is of this case. Like the whole thing has been almost a sideshow to me. I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Like there's particular things that are really going to matter, but the whole build up to it all, like I'm glad there's guys like him and Viva Fry and Robert Barnes and like these other guys who they cover it in detail and keep track of it, so I can just jump in and get their take at whatever point. But I'm happy to know that there are lawyers like this out there.
Yeah, sharp guy.
September. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin is with us. Lisa, good morning. What did the Manhattan DA's office have to say?
Manhattan DA's office had to say a lot on one hand and not much of anything on the other. First, they're telling Judge Merchan that essentially they'll defer to whatever he wants. But then they flag a number of issues on both sides with respect to Trump's request to delay the sentencing. On one hand, they take umbrage at a number of points that Trump raises in his letter that appear to take potshots at the DA. But substantively, they are acknowledging that the Supreme Court's decision doesn't have a lot to say about whether evidentiary rulings about immunity are immediately appealable. And given that the sentencing is scheduled for just 2 days after Judge Merchan is scheduled to decide whether to set aside the verdict on the basis of those evidentiary rulings, they say Trump could go to an appellate court and upend preparations for the sentencing, which are likely to be costly and complicated. And given that, they're throwing it back to Judge Merchan and saying, whatever you decide, Judge, we'll be ready.
Pathetic cowards, man. They were racing to save American democracy. They needed to get Trump convicted so quickly or else we were all going to die before the election. Trump stole 2016, they claim. Now he's going to steal 2024. Oh, no. And then they just defer. Oh, man, so spineless. Stand by your decision. Bragg, Colangelo, you guys get it all the way to the finish line. Man, the left must be very upset about this. Trump's going to get away with it again. Oh, they're going to have a meltdown. Oh, it's going to be so fun to watch. We're going to be here continuing to cover it. Thank you for subscribing, as we do.
So yeah, this is the guy here at Rob Gouveia Esquire on Twitter. Criminal defense lawyer, daily live stream watching the Watchers live, spotlighting misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. 6 p.m. Eastern. He's from Phoenix. He's got a Rumble channel. Yeah. I'm going to hopefully get him into my my algorithm a little more. All right. Very last thing here. I want to share some wise words from friend of the show, Andrew Torba. He says, the dissident right faces significant challenges in terms of financial support and patronage. The current political and economic establishment, which benefits tremendously from maintaining the post-war neoliberal consensus of both the Republican and Democrat machines, controls most of the serious capital. This makes it difficult for alternative voices and movements to gain traction and sustain their efforts. However, there are two massive wealth transfer events on the horizon that will change this dynamic. First, the impending generational wealth transfer from boomers to millennials and Gen X over the next decade or so will provide an influx of resources to the dissident right. As this wealth changes hands, there will be more opportunities for individuals and organizations aligned with the dissident right to secure funding and support. Second, the potential for Bitcoin to experience a significant price increase or going to the moon will create a new class of wealthy individuals who are sympathetic to the dissident right's cause. Many Bitcoin holders are already aligned with the dissident right's views, and a substantial increase in the cryptocurrency's value will provide them with the financial means to support the movement more robustly. In the meantime, the dissident right must rely on its own resources and the support of like-minded individuals to continue its efforts. While this may be challenging, it's a necessary step until the landscape shifts in our favor. We're like the pilgrims landing in America with nothing but the clothes on our back and the support of one another. I cannot stress this enough. We need to support one another. We are all we have right now, but a time is fast approaching where we will have to have an extraordinary amount of wealth to fund our movement, organization, and voices to rebuild our nations. So, it's a white pill, and it's a sobering white pill. You have to. It may be a little bitter, but there's a lot of opportunity on the horizon. So, it is up to us to position ourselves to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. Cooper, thank you for jumping in here today.
Yes, sir.
You have any closing thoughts? I did get it under 3 hours.
I love you all.
Aw, you hear that? He's like that otter from the very beginning, the one who came and gave you. He's Habrock. Cooper is the otter who loves you guys, and he would give you his rock.
Have you ever read The Giving Tree?
I don't think so.
By Shel Silverstein.
Oh, yeah, probably way back in the day.
I read that for the first time since I was a little kid to one of my kids the other day, and it got me a little bit, man.
Oh, you having a dad moment?
Yeah.
Ah, so young and yet so old.
Yep.
Yes, Taylor Brown, do join the Discord, kingpill.com. We'd love to have you in there. All right, I got some work I got to get done and need to try to get rid of this headache, so I'm going to bounce. Thanks for showing up today, guys. Do me a favor, hit the like button on your way out. Join the Discord, kingpill.com. And follow me on Twitter, @RealKingPill. You can follow Cooper, too, @CooperBrooks. He tells me, he told me that he's going to be dedicating a lot of time to posting banger tweets. And that's going to be one of his primary focuses, so you should go follow him so you can get all those banger tweets.
That's what I do. I have considered, okay, I'm probably not going to be posting banger tweets because that's not how I roll. I like lurking. But I was thinking of maybe starting to post some banger tunes.
Yeah.
So you can tune in to the Cooper Brooks Twitter for your daily banger.
Alembic. All right.